at the direction of the board, we've had some community meetings. We've had one already. The next couple coming up will be April the 11th at the Kelly Plantation Clubhouse, April the 20th. I'll be meeting with the community advisory committees in the Sparkman Family Schools at the Sparkman High School Library at 4:30. That's a Wednesday. And on May the 2nd, the Madison County Schools Parent Organization is hosting another community meeting open for anyone, and that will be on May the 2nd. And we have not determined a location, but it will be in that evening. So it'll be either here or in the Sparkman area. From Madison County Education Association, Ms. Debbie Reynolds, do you want to, would you like to share a word?
Greetings from the Madison County Education Association. I'm here this evening to extend our appreciation for the countless hours that you have spent discussing, debating, and seeking ways to improve our system and the education for our children. We hope that you will enjoy this small token of appreciation.
That was a surprise.
Amen.
Supper.
Put it in the bucket.
Won't matter how late it goes tonight, we'll have food.
Oh, let's don't be crazy.
All right, and from Meridianville Middle School, Mr. David Manning, would you come forward? We got a special presentation for the board tonight.
Thank you. Thanks to the board for having us tonight. Just want to introduce our VEX robotics team. This is the first year that we've had a VEX robotics team, and they have qualified for the World Tournament in Louisville, Kentucky, coming up later this month. So they've been working really hard. We've had some great sponsors and people really helping us to get there. It's an awesome group of students, putting countless hours, a lot of volunteers. Miss Mary Hedrick, she's a science teacher, and she's our robotics sponsor. She's going to come in and lead the team this time.
I speak for you, what for me. I'd like for the team members to come up and bring their creation. Thank you all so much for having us here tonight, and thank you very much for your sponsorship, your donation to help our team, and pay the expenses to take them to Louisville. It is our rookie year. We're one of the few middle school teams that competes in the VEX league, and so we have had lots of competitions up against middle school and high school teams around the northern part of the state. We had the state championships, but the kids want to tell you a little bit about their experiences, and so first they would like to introduce themselves.
I'm Andrew Gottlieb. I'm in seventh grade. This is my first year of robotics, and I work on programming.
I am Willow Moore. I am in eighth grade, and this is also my first year in robotics. I work with building the robot and maintaining it in hardware.
I am Cullen Mills. I am in seventh grade, and this is my third year of robotics. I work on building the robot.
My name is Cole Collier. This is my third year of robotics. I'm in seventh grade, and I work on programming the robot.
My name is Alex West. This is my first year in robotics, and I'm in seventh grade, and this is my first year doing robotics, and I'm in the integration.
My name is Joseph Blaine, and I'm in seventh grade. This is my first year doing robotics and project.
I also wanted to introduce Ron Bowman. He's our head coach mentor robot guru. He's our engineering specialist and has just volunteered hours and hours and drives all around with these kids to all the competitions and meets with them at crazy amounts of time after school, and on weekends and holidays and all kinds of time to make sure that they can do and they have time to do everything that they want to do. You want to tell a little bit about your competition? You want to tell me about it? Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
All right, so we started off in August, and this is all our first year. And we didn't start our first competition until January. And honestly, we didn't really have a robot until January. We started freaking out about 2 weeks before.
We competed at 4 state qualifiers, and we competed at Hazel Green, and we competed at McCattery Middle in Central Alabama, and then we competed at Ohatchee, and then we competed at and then we competed at McAllen Middle School also. We went to the semifinals at Hazel Green and at McCattery, and then at Ohatchee we made it to finals, and then McAllen we succeeded in the semifinals.
We made it to state from robotic skills that the driving and programming skills. The programming skill consists of making a program that your robot runs continuously for 2 minutes, trying to make as much points as possible to the goal. And the driving skill, it consists of making a program that you can control the robot and the goal. We got into state from making enough more points than most people. And that's the skill.
We made it to World from two awards that we made at our middle school at state competition at the middle school level. The Design and Excellence Award. The World competition is April 20th through 23rd, and it is last 3 days. See, I guess it was me who yeah.
We're very excited. Tell them how many,
Oh, yes.
how many teams will be
There's 178 teams, 72 teams that plan on going, and only 2 middle school teams from Alabama are going, so I think.
All right.
The teams are from Singapore, China. Go ahead.
Well, I know for high school and middle school, it's a lot of from the Far East, but like Japan, China. China's big. Australia has teams there. There's some teams from Canada coming. The teams from UK and Germany and Europe pulled out for probably funding reasons, but there's 30% of the teams there are outside the U.S., 70% are from inside the U.S. And it should be pretty good. The high school competition there is up close to 500 teams. They're a little bit more diverse. And I wanted to say one other thing. Hazel Green High. Hazel Green High coach Wade Sims played a instrumental part in, I guess, giving us the right direction to go. He's got 5 great teams there that unfortunately couldn't qualify for the Worlds because of their high school. We qualified because of our middle school, and we competed the whole year against against high school teams. We finally got to the middle school where we were able to win those. So anyway, we'll just show you a little bit of what this is just one thing that we can do. We'll go ahead and turn it on. And this is the driver control, but one of the things you can do for shooting is, Cole, driver, go ahead and turn it on. No, we're not going to run autonomous. Just go ahead and turn it on. That's the main goal is there, and the idea is to put ball, to shoot, go ahead and turn it on.
So during autonomous,
You're all.
during autonomous, we use the servo to regulate the balls going in so we cannot push the robot during autonomous. And also we the wheels, of course, watch the balls, and the column on the side, it's still a work in progress. We haven't exactly gotten it working yet, but we back the robot up into the balls, and it takes the balls up to the launcher and launches them into the water.
Very good.
It's no problem that the ball pickup mechanism isn't functional yet, because we have 2 weeks. And that's all we had to start with when we threw it together to begin with.
There you go.
So we're good.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool. That is cool.
Her name is Sasha.
Yes. That's awesome. Well, congratulations, guys. That's pretty incredible.
Thank you again for having me.
Thank you.
That was wonderful.
Do you want to add anything, Mr. Nash? No. Yeah, okay. And we've got some incredible STEM activities going on across our district, and it's not just in Meridianville, but it is in all grade levels, and implementing from Project Lead the Way into a really strong push into elementary, even more so next year, and moving forward. Our students are rising to the occasion, so that's exciting. All right, now Ms. O'Bannon is going to discuss, at the request of the board, inter-fund loans with our schools.
Overview of our local school loans, both our inter-fund loans as well as our bank loans. So there's just a few slides, so you'll follow along with me, members of the board, and Mr. Madison. The first, let me get this thing going. I can't see. Here we go. Sorry. Let's take a look first at the fund loans, and this is an excerpt from our financial procedures manual that reflects the steps and the process of a local school principal when requesting a loan, and the loan amount can exceed $15,000. So it's basically an interest-free loan that the system, once board approved, passes on to the schools for specific reasons. I will show you the next slide what those could be in our current loans right now. These have all basically been approved recently. As you can see, we have the date approved by the board, the school, the use of the funds, the amount, and our current balance is $62,500. And typically these are paid off through the booster clubs, local school funds, in a 3-year period. So a $15,000 loan is paid off within 3 years. So that's the balance for those, and those are on our books as interfund loans. Then the bank loans, the outstanding loans for the bank loans, these are from public funds and are board approved. Typically, the principals that the high schools receive some TDA funds that can only be used for athletic facilities and athletic grounds. And so they'll take their amount, which is $40,000 per school, and leverage those money for these loans for specific reasons, because there's just not local funding available really to support athletic in the manner we would like to do. So these are our outstanding balances. You can see the year approved, and most recently the Hazel Green High, 2000, was just approved last month, where we extended that particular bank loan and added $250,000. I wasn't specific with the athletic facility, but if you need more information on that, I'll certainly share it with you. But the loan amount, the initial loan amount, then the current balance going forward as of today. And I'm sharing the interest rate of each loan. And when it says negotiable, after 4 years, that means we go back and the balance on the loan is extended another 4 years, typically till it's paid off, and the interest rate is renegotiated at that time. I will tell the board that Madison County High School sent a request just this week that will probably be coming to you at the next meeting for $100,000 to be added to their loan to extend the term. Don't have all the details on that, but I'm looking. So that's coming on the next one. You can see the balances that we have are pretty substantial, that our local schools are using their TBA funds. And in some instances, those with the larger balances, they actually are pulling in, not only using their $40,000 per year, they're allocating the TBA money, but booster loans, booster proceeds, athletic proceeds, things of that nature, that fundraisers, to make the payment. Do you have any questions on this?
I know that that baseball light loan at New Hope is an old loan. That interest rate is a lot higher than
Right.
everything else.
Right.
I'm sure they're
And
close to
pays
paying
off
it
in a
off.
couple years. In fact, it may pay off this year instead. The reason these are the public loans is because public money, the TBA money, the only way we can approve such a loan, or the board can approve such a loan with TBA funds used to make the payments of a public loan, the board has to approve what's on the state, because TBA funds are used to make the principal and interest payments. And in some cases, other revenue sources are used in our local schools. We only have one private loan with the school system, and we don't really encourage these. What this is, we have one true that's non-public fund, it's a bonus loan that the board's aware, but it's not approved by the board because the name on the loan are some of our actual business on members. They take on the loan themselves. So it's a non-public account and a non-public loan, and they use this loan to make the payments on these loans. We have one at Spartan High, softball, it's in the name of the softball booster club for the softball facility. It was renewed in 2015 at $115,000, and this is the current balance and the current interest rate. And it will be negotiable again in 4 years. Any questions?
So there's no TVA allocation that is applied to that private loan
No,
at all?
sir.
Okay.
If so, we would, it'd be, the principal would sign the note as well, and the board would approve it. It's strictly booster club money.
What happens in the event of default with a loan like that?
We've never run into that. You may want to answer that. To me, it's our facilities owned by the school system.
Mhm.
So, in my opinion, it would come back on the board regardless. But I
Kind of
don't
the
know that to
softball?
be true.
It would
The
depend on-
non-public account, that.
It would depend on what the term of the loan says, and it's probably unsecured, I would assume. I don't see how the boosters could secure it with your facilities, so I don't know what it would come back.
No, it's unsecured, however, we own the facilities, is what I'm saying, but
Yeah, I think it's an unsecured loan, and the boosters are named on a loan.
So you may
It's
have
not to
Bill-
Sparkman, it's to Joe Blow, John
Right.
Doe, Jackie.
the
I
principal
mean,
is
it's,
not on this loan at
yeah.
all.
Then that
School's not there.
shouldn't revert back to the school. I
Okay.
feel like you have an ethical obligation to repay it if you receive the benefit of the use of the proceeds, but legally, the document shouldn't, I mean, individuals should not be able to go out and get a loan that binds the school system. So,
But let's face it, that's why they give the loans, because they know that the board's not gonna allow that to happen. I mean,
I said ethically.
I mean,
legally.
exactly, that's what I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Morally and legally, maybe, two different.
Our booster clubs, they're just phenomenal in the school system, and the support that we receive from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Bannon. Any other questions? All right, we recently received our advanced ed report review, and for who I'm missing, I just skipped over the early childhood. Never mind, item E is for discussion of our early childhood specialist position. Dr. Mincy is going to discuss this. This is going to kind of relate to our pre-K program that is growing at a very rapid rate, and there's a huge demand for this in our community, and we're looking for ways to support our schools as we're almost adding a new grade level.
Before we talk about the specific position, I want to give a little bit of overview about the grants that we currently have and with our pre-K programs. That's why I've asked Dr. Jensen and Dr. Slaughter to come up. The Office of School Readiness was created in the legislature in May of 2000. Basically, their goal of readiness was to have enthusiasm for learning, an ability to function in social settings, age-appropriate communication and problem solving, age-appropriate physical and emotional skills, and optimal health. In Alabama, if you look at the map, in 2012, there are 217 grants. The blue are the old grants. The new grants, which now are 652, are in red. And that's in 2016. They're up to 200 or 652 grants. The annual funding for the pre-Ks this last year was $48 million. Understanding in legislation, or at the legislature right now, they're actually looking at a possible $20 million increase to take that grant proposal to $68 million. With our particular program, we started in 2001, as mentioned last time that I did this presentation, with 9 students in one classroom. As you see, when we get down to 2011, 2012 school year, it continued to grow. That particular year is when we started losing Title I funding. In 2014, 2015 is when our OSR, or Office of School Readiness grants, came about for our first-class pre-K programs. The difference, the number's a little bit less, but the benefit is we are now providing a full-day, high-quality pre-K, which is the definition of a high-quality pre-K. Our past pre-K programs were a half-day of pre-K, and if the child was there all day, they actually went to daycare for half a day. So basically, we're able to increase the amount of times our pre-K students are receiving services. The graph that just basically shows you can see the increase, how it goes down, and then 2014, how we're steadily climbing back up to our numbers. So why a high-quality pre-K program? Several studies out there, basically you're looking at the child is less likely to regrade if they go to a pre-K, high-quality pre-K program. Required remedial education is less, and there's less students being placed into special education that attend a high-quality pre-K program. They score higher in achievement tests, are more likely to graduate, obtain higher salaries, and more likely to stay out of prison and welfare. The numbers that they provide for us, they basically say for every dollar that you put into a pre-K program, you're getting, the community and the schools are getting a savings of about $7 for every dollar that we put in, because we're not spending additional money on remediation, special education, and then as they get older into the prison system and welfare system. With this Office of School Readiness grant, there are basically 3 types of grants that can be awarded or applied for. The Excellence Grant, the Tiered Grant, and the New Classroom Grant. I'll go through each one of these. The Excellence Grant is up to a $45,000 grant. These grants are basically designed to help supplement a existing pre-K program that you have. For our school system, we have 7 Title I classrooms that are pre-K. The Excellence Grants our schools applied for to help assist with staff development, with overages in salaries, And we have several schools this year who have applied for the excellence grants, which I'll show you a little bit later on. The tiered grant is a grant that, based on your free and reduced lunch numbers, get anywhere from $80,100 per year for a 3-year period to $92,700. This is the primary, it's kind of the bread and butter of their grant program because it is a 3-year program. There's also a new classroom or a plus grant. We are fortunate enough to be one of the systems that the Office of School Readiness is looking at and providing the opportunity to actually apply for the $150,000 new classroom grants. There are a lot of systems that aren't allowed, and they're only allowed to do the $120,000. So the $150,000 new classroom grant is a 1-year grant, and it is designed to be able to purchase everything that is necessary for a pre-K classroom. I'm blessed to have my daughter in one of these $150,000 grants, and it is a brand new classroom, brand new furniture, everything in the classroom is basically brand new. Also, the $150,000 pays for the teacher, the auxiliary teacher, and any staff development that is needed throughout that particular year. With the tiered grant, which is basically if you apply for a first class grant or startup grant, after that first year, then you apply for a tiered grant to continue your program. We have 2 schools, Walnut Grove and Madison County Elementary School, whose free and reduced lunch numbers are high enough where they are able to apply for an $85,500 grant. The remainder of our Title I schools qualify for the $82,800, and our non-Title I schools all qualify to apply for the $80,100. And again, if that grant is earned, it's for a 3-year period, so it's $80,100 for 3 years. This is our current grant structure that we have. If you look, we have the developmental is the $150,000 grants. Again, they're 1-year grants. The others are our tiered grants. Right now, our school system has $1.4 million in Office of School Readiness grants coming to our school system. The number that's down below there, the $11,000, because 2 of those schools, Mount Carmel and Lynn Fanning, thank you, are not Title I schools, we have to take $11,000 of our local funds to pay for part of Dr. Slaughter's salary so that she's legally allowed to work with those non-Title I schools based on the Title I guideline. The other part of this is we do have Title I pre-Ks. If you look at Hazel Green Elementary School, they have 2 grants and to pay for their teacher salaries, for their staff development, and any supplies, they're spending $215,000 out of their Title I money to pay for their grant. If you look at the ones that have 0, Madison County Elementary School, Newmarket, and Owens Crossroads, they have 0 pre-K, but they're having to take their federal dollars to help cover the overages, cover the other additional costs that are necessary with the Office of School Ready grant. So for a total, our Title I schools this particular year are putting in $765,000, which brings the total amount of money that we are putting in from grants and from federal funds of $2.1 million for our pre-Ks. And that does not include our special needs pre-Ks that we have, the 7 classes. The grant applications. If you look, if there's an asterisk with it, basically that tiered grant, that particular school had a developmental grant, $150,000 grant. All indications from the Office of School Readiness is if you have a developmental grant and you apply for a tiered grant, that you will earn that particular tiered grant. Dr. Jensen went down through as well, and the excellent grants, we've gotten pretty good indication that we'll be earning those. We will not find out exactly how much we have earned until either the end of this month or beginning of May. But when you look at all of the different classes, plus we are pretty confident in getting at least 5 new classrooms, which brings the total for just the Office of School Readiness grants to $2 million. We also have pretty good confirmation or pretty good understanding that there's a very high possibility of 10 additional classroom grants, which would take the total of just the OSR classrooms to $3.5 million in grant money. And then when you add in the amount of money that's going to be used with Title I programs next year, it brings that total, projected total, to almost $4.5 million. What we're going to be asking for and talking about a little bit later in the presentation is requesting an early childhood specialist. That particular person, with all the projected grant of $4.5 million, basically we're asking local funds to help supplement 2% of what we're actually earning from our grants. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jensen to talk a little bit about the responsibilities as far as what this position would entail. Before that, she and Dr. Slaughter had a meeting with the Office of School Readiness. One of the questions after the meeting was, how many more systems are you actually meeting with? And they said 0. That Madison County is a focus system, and we're very, very impressed with what we're doing with our pre-K programs, and that has to do a lot with what these two ladies are doing.
Okay, Dr. Binsky wanted me to share with you what we discussed in our meeting with the Commissioner of the Office of School Readiness last Friday and the Director of the Office of School Readiness. And basically, they asked for a meeting with us on Thursday, and we had no idea whether we were going to get a slap on the hand for something we weren't doing right or a pat on the back, which we didn't expect. But what they did say is that they were impressed with the way Madison County schools and administrators and teachers are utilizing the grants, and they are very pleased with the way that the grants are running and that the way that we are adhering to the guidelines. And they did stay about probably 4 hours with us on Friday, asking for input on how to improve the first-class pre-K grant program, the actual pre-K classrooms, and what suggestions we had for improving the program across the state. So it just so happened we each had a list, and we shared that with them. So I think that they were impressed with what we're doing in Madison County. They also had looked at how many grants we are applying for, which we are applying for a total of 24. And while that sounds like a lot, we currently have 20 pre-K classrooms, or 20 pre-K classrooms, and we have 77 kindergarten classes. So we're only serving about a fourth of our kindergarten students in pre-K. So I think the meeting went well, and they did tell us that they have readers now that are currently reading the grants. And as soon as we know how much money pre-K will receive in this legislative session, then the grant awards will be sent out. As far as the major pre-K responsibilities, we tried to select the most time-consuming responsibilities that the district persons work with. This is not an inclusive list by any means, and after typing up this list, we have both thought of additional things we should have added, but we won't go there tonight for sake of time. But staffing, staff development, budgets, grant applications, baseline, teaching strategies, goal assessment, and the monthly monitoring meeting are some of the most time-consuming. Okay, with staffing, the principal actually does the staffing of the school. However, a principal who is new to the grant is not aware of all the guidelines and all the paperwork that is required by OSR. The pre-K teacher does have to be certified in early childhood education, but that's not enough for the Office of School Readiness. They have to actually have the actual transcript sent to them. So we try to serve as liaisons in making sure that that occurs, and they also have a teacher certification checklist that they have to complete with all the items that they have to send to the Office of School Readiness. So we just try to assist with that so it does not fall on the administration in a school who has never had a grant. The auxiliary assistant is required to have 3 classes of early childhood college coursework, and they also, if they're employed in a Title I school, they have to be highly qualified by Title I standards, which means they have to have passed all 3 sections of the work keys test or have a 30 years of college. Not 30 years, 30 credits. We currently employ 20 pre-K teachers and 20 auxiliary assistants or aides in Madison County. Our staff development for our Office of School Readiness and our Title I teachers is fairly demanding. Several of these items are required by the Office of School Readiness, and if a employee that is employed with OSR funds does not attend, it's a $500 fine. So we try to make sure we don't pay any fines because we want to put our money on something that is moving children forward, and we don't want to use it for fines. But those are just the names of the other staff developments that we typically do, or Office of School Readiness does. A one-time consuming piece is our budgets. We work with the principals to establish the budget when we apply for the grant, but we also can change it if the grant is awarded and they've thought of something else that they want to add to this budget. We have to have a 25% match, and the match can be in kind or actual dollars. So we work with the principal to come up with things that they have purchased this school year that could count as a pre-K match because it's going to benefit those pre-K students. With these budgets, we work with these on a monthly basis, making sure that all the requisitions have been encumbered, all of the staff development has been paid out and is actual, so that we know at the end of the year, like this development grant of $150,000 still has $15,782 in it. That money won't go back to the Office of School Readiness. We have until May to spend that money, and we'll spend that. The grant application process is another time-consuming activity. This year we started in December with a meeting, went on through January, had another meeting with all interested administrators. Then they actually started writing their drafts. And from that point, it was just a back and forth with input, suggestions, and we would let them know what they were missing, and they would submit it. Their final grants were due to us on March 1st, even though the final grants required by OSR were not due until March 20th. That was to give us time to read them one last time to make sure they were correct. And the March 20th fell on a Sunday and also was the Sunday following spring break. So we wanted to get them in on Friday prior to spring break. So that was accomplished. Okay, I'm going to let Dr. Slaughter talk to you about the baseline information.
Real quickly, OSR requires for every district, if they have an OSR grant, to maintain a database. And it's typical, it's similar to our iNow application that we utilize, and we have to input our student demographic information, our parent information, information about the family income, additionally the class sites, the names of our classrooms. All of that type of information has to be entered into this baseline edge, and so it has to be maintained. In addition to those components, we have to also enter a budget, so there's a budget template. The spreadsheet is a little bit different than the one that was just displayed and discussed by Dr. Jensen. It has various line items that are different, and it's also labor intensive as well. Although the bulk of the information and the data is inputted at the very beginning of the school year, there's still, throughout the course of the year, a lot of information that we have to maintain. We have to ensure that the number of students that are on the waiting list for each school, that is updated continually. We have to make sure that if a student is referred for an IEP, that it's entered into to the baseline edge. So there are a variety of components that has to be updated periodically throughout the course of the year. If a student enrolls, if a child withdraws, all of that has to be updated throughout the course of the school year. Additionally, all of our pre-K teachers, they use the Teaching Strategies Gold Assessment, and we just simply refer to it as the Gold Assessment. It is a little bit different than your typical assessment because remember, we are assessing and measuring the progress growth of 4-year-olds. So it's different, but I just wanted you to see a quick snapshot. There are 9 dimensions of learning that the teachers have to assess to ensure that the students are growing. And so for each one of those, it becomes a little bit and/or auxiliary aids that they have to complete throughout the year. And to us, it's similar to a progress monitoring period, or it's almost like a report card period. But through that process and through that window of time, teachers have to collect at least 2 pieces of documentation by each teacher, auxiliary aides or assistants included, and they have to do that daily. And so what they utilize to collect that evidence, they can use notes, photos, videos, any of that type of information to collect evidence to access and assess if those students are growing. So it doesn't sound like much, 2 pieces of documentation per day, but when you add it up, it's quite substantial when you see the types of documentation that they're having to collect on 4-year-old students. For instance, I showed you those 9 dimensions. There's math, there's cognitive, there are all those dimensions. Well, for each one of those dimensions or learning skills, there are objectives for each one. So, for instance, for math, there may be counting or quantifying or problem solving. And so you may have 9 or 10 per dimension. So when you add that up for each child, they have to collect at least one piece, and it adds up to 128 pieces of evidence per child for one of those checkpoint periods. For 18 students for one classroom, that teacher, as a minimum, has to collect 2,304 pieces of evidence per checkpoint. And so when you look at the different types of checkpoint, for instance, and I'm not going to read that to you, but I just wanted to give you a snapshot. That's just one piece of evidence that a teacher has collected on a child. And I'll just give you just the highlights of that particular piece of evidence. That's a small group, but the teacher describes what she is doing in that particular activity. And I think it's a math activity I think it's language, where she has actually, inside of a brown bag, she has entered pictures of different animals and nouns and objects. And so the student's task is to simply go and reach inside the bag and then to pull out a particular picture and then give the sound of what they have actually pulled out. So if they've collected a dolphin, then of course they're going to say the dust sound. But as you can see, they're having to record every single thing that has actually occurred. So at the very bottom that you can barely read, you'll notice there are 2 check marks at the very bottom of that slide. And so it says solve problems, and so it tells you what dimension that they actually observed during that period. This is another piece of documentation that the teacher has actually collected. This is math. This is a different one, and I just wanted you, again, to see the different types. This is a dialogue that they've actually captured of a student actually just talking to the teacher, but if you'll notice all of the different components, that child is able to speak clearly, that they're able to listen, that they'll be able to, that they can exchange dialogue, and all of those different dimensions they have to actually record. So the purpose and the importance of that is that someone at the district level has to monitor all of that. And so for one teacher, when you think about the amount of documentation that they have, and we're required to go in and look at each teacher's documentation on a weekly basis to see if the documentation is, first, high quality. Does the documentation, does it fit the dimensions that they're saying that it does? The levels that they're assigning, they are assigning levels for each one of those skills. So we have to look and observe, so are they actually supporting with documentation for the levels that are assigned? They're called preliminary levels. And if they're not, then there has to be someone there to support and help and provide some different type of samples to help them, of course, to do better. There's also a monthly monitoring checklist. There's a meeting. Our OSR has a monitor and a coach. The coach actually goes into the classroom on a monthly basis to do just that, to coach and help the teachers, but there's also a monitor, and she visits with Dr. Jensen or with me on a monthly basis, and there's a checklist of items that we have to go through and observe to determine if we are completing all of the requirements and the guidelines that they have set in place. And so it's quite intensive as well. Sometimes it's a 2-page checklist, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4. And so that's it. Are there any questions?
Yes, when you went and talked to them, did you tell them that their teachers couldn't do what they were supposed to do because they're too busy trying to document what's going on? Did you share that?
We did share that there is a lot of paperwork.
I mean, in the real world, goodness.
We do share that. We do share that information. And it's good because our pre-K teachers, people don't realize how hard they work, but there's a lot of paperwork, and as you can see from the documentation itself, and the students are learning. They're doing this, again, after school hours. There's very little planning. Of course, there's nap time, but, you know, they work very hard. They work very hard. They work hard.
With that piece of information, or with all this information, I thought it was important for them to share what they're having to do on a regular basis. I know I've had questions, well, can this not just be added on to somebody else's job? Can somebody just not do this as part of what it is? No. They really can't. It's taking two people more than half the amount of time of their day, each day, to help monitor this particular program with 13 sites. That's why we're requesting a person who's going to spend 90 to 95% of their day every single day working to make sure that we're in compliance, that we're continuing to grow our pre-K program. We have 77 kindergartens in our school system, and I would love to see over the next 5 to 8 years 77 pre-Ks and every child in our system served. That is our goal. Question from last meeting was, what about the funding? Again, the funding source, we're requesting to use our local general fund to pay for this particular position. 6% of the grant money can be used to pay for administrative costs. The problem, what we found with doing that is now the schools, if I go back to the slide, and I'll send you the PowerPoint after this meeting, where Newmarket schools having to pay $37,000 out of Title I to help fund their program, by taking 6% out of the grant, that takes 6% away from each school. So now they're having to find a way to kind of supplement that money. That's why we feel it's important for us as a system to own this, to work toward coming up with the money. It's a priority for us. It's a funding priority. Karen O'Bannon has already worked and figured out a way to make it work funding-wise. It was asked about the organizational chart. Emily, scroll down to about the 4th page and where it falls on the organizational chart. Keep going. Right there. This position would fall under the Director of Teaching and Learning, report directly to the Supervisor for Instruction, Mr. Alan Perkins. And as you see on the far left-hand side, that's where the Early Childhood Specialist would fall in our organizational chart that Mr. Massey has put together. The question of why, again, Dr. Jensen, Dr. Slaughter have done a fantastic job of serving this particular program. You know, we need a single person to facilitate. We're looking at every elementary school in our system this year has applied for some type of Office of School Readiness grant. So we're going to see them in more and more non-Title I schools. And the funding source cannot come from the Title I program to be able to oversee those particular grants, which is why we're asking for this position to be able to come from our general fund to be able to support. With the job description, what I sent you earlier this week was some notes. The main couple of changes to the job description comes with the qualifications. It was asked about adding administrative certification. We've added a qualification to have administrative certification for this particular position. And also, to expand the pool of candidates, we went from not just early childhood with administrative certification, but early childhood or elementary certification with a certification in educational administration. Again, I'm hoping that at the end of our next board meeting, we can bring this up to a vote and we can kind of move forward for growing our pre-K program. So thank you for the opportunity to listen to what we have to say. Do you have any questions?
This has probably nothing to do with this, but we'll be asked this question as
Yes, ma'am.
children are turned away from a pre-K program. I know how a child qualifies for the Title I.
Yes, ma'am.
What about the Office of School Readiness?
Office of School
How
Readiness.
are those children chosen?
Yes, ma'am. They are chosen by lottery. It is a
Okay.
complete lottery. Once they have what we call a complete packet, so they have a complete application packet, all of their paperwork is in, usually the beginning of June. Every child that has a complete packet, say from Lynn Fanning Elementary School, all of those names will go into a hat. I believe there were 41 last year. And basically, it's put into a bingo machine. Names are spun around, and they're pulled out. Number 1, and they list 1 through 18. So 18 students per classroom, and then a waiting list is created.
Karen, like in Title I schools where they're using OSR, you know, for pre-K. Is it still the same? Are the children put in according to need, or is it still lottery once it's OSR?
In the Title I schools where they are putting in money with the tiered grants, it equates to about 2 slots. For Title I, we have to complete a Title I pre-K worksheet and come up with how much each seat in that classroom cost based on the amount of funding we're putting in from the grant or from Title I. So we pull, like in most cases, 16 seats are funded by the grant. So we pull that many cards out of the machine, and then we put those on the list. Then we do our waiting list, and then all those students on the waiting list, we assess with an initial screener, and then the most needy of those students are served.
Like the total
In order, yes.
spend. All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions?
I got a question or two.
Sure.
Most, if not all, of your description here has been relative to pre-K.
Yes, sir.
But yet the description in the job title, it brings in kindergarten first and second.
Yes, sir.
Why is this
Well,
just not pre-K?
We wanted to have a little flexibility. If the person, say 90% of their time is devoted to pre-K, that they can use that additional 10% of the time to work with kindergarten, first and second grade to help supplement. That's why we added the additional grades. Instead of just saying just pre-K and just kind of keeping them narrowed into that piece, we wanted to kind of make sure it was to the early childhood grades, which is pre-K through second grade.
Sounds like to me they're gonna have plenty to do in pre-K that they're not gonna have time to.
There's a very high possibility that is correct, yes, sir.
I don't think they'll be able to have lunch or anything else.
They won't, believe me, we don't.
Well, and especially now that we're going pre-K into schools that have never had pre-K. So I know all the feeder schools in the Monrovia Middle are applying the feeder, some of the other feeder schools into Buckhorn Middle, into, Lynn Fanning is one of the ones that's not Title I that has it. So we've got a lot of principals that haven't dealt with this. But as, after the first year and they get the hang of the grants and that kind of thing, the gold assessment can be given beyond pre-K. It can be given to kindergartners. And so that we just wanted to be able to allow some flexibility in there if there's a need to do professional development with kindergarten teachers that we can tie in with professional development on pre-K. Well, now, we can do that, and it just kind of gives us some additional flexibility.
Do y'all read all that evidence from every teacher every week?
Skim.
Skim, okay. Well, that,
Or screed,
Don't
that
say.
skim reading.
If anybody's planning on applying for this and they've heard this tonight, I don't think you'll have any applicants.
Maybe this is short-sighted of me, but I'd like to see that pulled out and it just be pre-K. If we're gonna do this, I'd like for it just to be pre-K. Because I do think the program needs to be expanded. I think it needs to be in every school, in every classroom. We need to have I want their time spent on pre-K. We're saying this is a great program and it needs to be better, and I think that's what we need to focus on.
This whole program is obviously based on grants.
Yes, sir.
The funding of it
Correct.
entirely.
Yes, sir.
I think us making decisions would have to consider the possibility that maybe one day these grants aren't available anymore. What would be your comment as to how stable do you think this is? I know there has been a big push from Montgomery for this, but administrations change and priorities change with that.
Address that, Karen?
What we were told on Friday is that pre-K is going to continue to grow and that it is not going anywhere. And with the Every Student Succeeds Act, which replaced No Child Left Behind, there is a huge emphasis on pre-K. As a matter of fact, the development grants that you saw on the screen that we received 5 of this school year are $150,000. Those are federal grants. They're not state grants, they're federal. And I counted last year's grants, and there were somewhere in the 50 of those grants. I asked Friday how many federal grants we were receiving this year for $150,000. I was told 100. So the federal government has doubled what they're giving to us because they've also put an emphasis on pre-K and the importance. They're finally starting to see the impact it has on students in the future and adults. So I don't think it's going anywhere.
There's, seems to be some crossover with the OSR program and Title I.
There is.
Yes, sir.
In looking at the org chart, I don't see any, they're kind of presented as being separate. Is that an issue or worth discussing?
We will always have to work with whoever is hired as a team because there are a set of Title I guidelines that always has to be followed if $1 of Title I money goes into the pre-K. And the Title I will be monitored closely on the pre-K, and they've developed a whole monitoring system for the Title I. So we'll always have to work as a team.
Right, but you've got 2/3 of the team reporting to one person and 1/3 of the team reporting to another.
Ultimately, they report to the Director of Teaching and Learning, which is Mr. Solly.
Okay. I see, they would just have another layer of.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
And what, back to the funding of how much they were using their Title I dollars, Madison County Elementary and New Hope Elementary are two good comparisons. That, Madison County Elementary had 0 in there for Title I funded pre-K, and what that allowed them to do was use their Title I dollars for interventions and interventionist coaches and technology. New Hope was putting in $200,000 into the pre-K, the Title I, is that right?
Hazel Green.
And some others. So what we want to be able to do is when they have those OSR pre-Ks, it will free up those Title I funds to do more flexible things. But that's kind of the problem with this team working with the pre-Ks outside of our Title I schools. That's what we can't keep doing, is it's growing now outside of Title I. When it was only Title I, that was in their realm. But that's why there's the need here. And they'll obviously work together, because as does everybody that works in Title I schools, other of our instructional folks when they're in Title I schools. Karen's a resource, and Janet is also for all of us through the Title I schools. They're an extra help for anything that goes on in those schools.
What percentage of the 2 y'all's day would you say you spend on pre-K?
It depends on the week. Last week, the last couple of weeks, I've probably spent 40 hours a week on pre-K. And so the additional Title I requirements have to be done during lunch, after work, before work, on the weekend. Dr. Slaughter, do you want to speak for yourself?
The majority of my time, too, it just depends, it fluctuates. Some weeks it's 40 hours, some weeks it's 20, another week it may be 60. It just depends. And so again, it's outside of regular hours, and then trying to combine that too, because I have 10% of my salary paid for the non-Title I schools. But when you combine that in addition to Title I responsibilities, it becomes a lot.
I'm assuming that there's a plan of some sort to make sure that what we're doing with this pre-K is being transitioned into our kindergarten and first grade, so that we're not just doing this great job here and then get to kindergarten and there's no crossover. Right. In this setting, who is responsible for that communication now? And if we had this person in place or had this position, would that person be responsible for communicating that and developing that transitional process?
They would work along with the Director of Teaching and Learning to work on that process, yes.
And who does that now? Who makes sure that pre-Ks, not just successes, but processes are communicated to kindergarten teachers so that we're continuing that? Because if pre-K is that successful, shouldn't we be moving that throughout into the kindergarten world and then on?
Yeah, a lot of the things with pre-K is providing the children the opportunity to learn at a younger, of age-appropriate learning style. I talked to Ms. Tammy Berger, principal at Lynn Fanning, and what they have done is their pre-K students, they actually provided the kindergarten screening to, and she said it was amazing how much higher these students are scoring on their kindergarten readiness than the students who are coming in without the pre-K. So just the pre-K piece is a benefit in itself. As far as the transition, a lot of it has been, I would say, some of it has fallen back on the principals. When I was at Newmarket, that was one of the things that, working with the pre-K teachers, kind of talking with the kindergarten teachers. I know Mr. Solly's. Please.
Kind of what I'm thinking is if we have these kindergarten, they can't.
Your point goes to, I probably was the one who requested that we make this actually an early childhood specialist, which would be pre-K through 3 actually, but pre-K through 2 would fall in that realm as well versus just a pre-K specialist, because we want to have continuity between those grade levels. And right now, unless it's happening just within the local school, that's where it's happening. I mean, there's, you know, I think this position could help ensure that that happens more effectively, probably than it does right now. Now, to kind of just expand on something you said, though, you know, while we are very pleased with the results that we're seeing from our pre-K, it's not that our other grade levels are not doing equally well. You know, I think the biggest thing that we need the person to help with is just helping our kindergartens understand better what is happening in pre-K and what the expectation for kids coming in with. I don't know that it's so much about taking what they're doing in pre-K and moving it into first grade, but more of an understanding and just helping with that transition. So,
but you know, there's a lot of pre-K teachers that are moving into kindergarten. So
that's their certification. It covers those grade spans.
Right, but so that's why it's happening. That's why they're carrying it on, because they understand they were in pre-K, they were teaching the pre-K, now they're in kindergarten. So you see that a lot in every school, where the teachers are moving from pre-K to kindergarten. So.
That certification is early childhood. Is that pre-K?
An early childhood
pre-K through 3?
certification is pre-K through 3.
Yeah.
An elementary certification is usually 1 through 6.
Yeah.
I just don't want us to lose sight of how important pre-K is.
Right.
And that's my concern.
Right. The
That's
focus
my
of this
only
position
concern.
will be on the pre-K. That's their primary focus for it. Yes, sir.
The portion of this job description that is for K through 2nd, support of just isolating those 3 grades, are we providing that service to our schools right now, or would that be a new service, that part of it, the K through 2?
Shall I let you? He's asking the current K through 2 services, who's actually providing assistance with those particular grade levels?
It's happening with a team approach. I mean, it's not one person is not assigned to that right now.
Any other questions? And I will, when I get back here, I will send a copy of the PowerPoint so you have that information and data. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Solly is going to discuss our advanced ed review report.
As y'all recall, obviously you're aware that our system has undergone accreditation this year, and for those of you remember on January the 26th, I believe that the external review team conducted an exit report in front of the school board, and at that time they pretty well gave an overview, I think, of the way this process works. In that exit review, they give you kind of the general, this is what we sort of saw in your school system, and then they go back and they finalize an actual written document that goes before I think it goes before the state committee or whatnot for approval. So it takes a little bit of time to get that actual final document back with the recommendations from the committee. Basically, the recommendations that the external review team for advanced ed makes falls into 3 categories. They can be powerful practices, opportunities for improvement, or improvement priorities. Powerful practices, these are processes and practices that are having the most significant impact on student performance and institutional effectiveness. They serve as critical leverage points to necessary to guide, support, and ensure continuous improvement. Our system did have one powerful practice, and that was our family design, that in each of our high school families, okay, they were very impressed and felt like that was a very powerful practice. The communication that goes on between our schools within those high school families, how they operate together, how they support each other, that was something that they came away very impressed with in Madison County Schools. Improvement priorities is one of the other recommendations they can make, and an improvement priority serves as a basis for the follow-up and monitoring process that will begin when they left us on January the 26th. And I'll talk about the next steps of that in just a little bit. An accreditation progress report must be submitted within 2 years of the review. So basically 2 years from January 16, we have to have a strategic plan in place that addresses these 3 improvement priorities, all right? So the 3 here, and I've kind of highlighted they're wordy, so I kind of wanted to pull out just sort of the few of the key words I felt like in each one. But improvement priority number 1, you'll see that with it, it's talking about a system plan. And in this first priority, it's looking at being more systemic in the areas of coordinating learning, physical, social, emotional supports, okay, for our system, all right? So one thing that the team really stressed when they visited schools, they really liked what they saw in our schools, okay? It wasn't that they were criticizing the program within the school, but they were looking for better coordination of those programs, okay? And so the systemic, how we come up with the systemic plan to coordinate that is what they're encouraging us to look for in a strategic plan. Priority number 2, again, very similar to number 1, they're looking for systemic, okay? A systematic way to align our curriculum, our continuous improvement initiatives, professional development, student assessment systems, making sure that things are that are equitable across the Madison County school system, and that there is, when they go to one school, they should see similar things in other schools that we have going on, and that there's a plan for how that happens, okay? Improvement priority number 3, and I highlighted the or because it's kind of like they created 2 plans here, but it addresses the discretionary funds that our school board has available to them right now, okay? Next steps, basically, pretty simple. We're supposed to take these findings and share it with stakeholders. So soon we'll be putting the report online, so it's available to the public or whatnot. The 4th bullet there talks about improvement priorities, coming up with a strategic plan to address those. And then number 6, just, this is the expectation. Those 3 improvement priorities, the institution's required to respond to all of those. Basically, we have 2 years from this past January, the 2016. We have a 2-year window of time to come up with a plan to address those things. Okay? That's it. Questions or?
How are we going about the game plan to address to address these things? Is that,
yeah?
Have we
well,
laid that out yet?
I think, to me, the first thing, because really all 3 things are, at a minimum, leadership is involved in all 3 of those, and then how I perceive evolving with that. Definitely on priority improvement priorities 1 and 2 for sure. I'm looking at building a team approach to that. Looking at people throughout our system, pulling together committees, taking a look at that. We've shared the first 2 priorities with our administrators, both our principals and our instructional APs over the last couple of weeks. so that they could kind of go ahead and start getting their minds around it, kind of getting their thoughts, how they think we should address it. But, it's something we have to address as a system. So from the superintendent board level to director level, principal level, teacher level, support staff, all of those, I think, need to be involved in maybe what that improvement plan looks like.
Priority number 3 was more directed at the board.
Yeah.
Correct.
Is that something that you guys would take the lead on, or do we need to take it on ourselves to?
I mean, I don't know. My opinion, I think the board, I think that's something, y'all, I guess I feel like that's something the board kind of has to drive internally. I mean, if the board wanted recommendations possibly on a.
The board created that practice. We've modified that practice a couple times. I think that one's smack dab on the 5 of us. We need to take, that one's smack dab on the 5 of us. We need to take a look at it, what they wrote, think about it, and discuss it, and where we're going forward.
Yeah.
That's.
I think Karen would need to have a pretty heavy role in that, at least a support role in that conversation.
Well, absolutely. I didn't say we did it in a vacuum, but it's on us to come up with what are the potential strategies, et cetera, et cetera.
And we have 2 years to do these?
Yeah.
Okay.
So have fun doing it.
That should be a big relief to those people. I promised I'd help pay off their loan.
Other questions?
Overall, I mean, as I went through this, I just, I guess I was kind of shocked at so many times that we didn't meet their standard. I just,
In what?
just overall, where they set their, their.
What, yeah, there's for those of you that don't know, the Advanced Ed, they have what they call an IEQ score.
Right.
Okay, that's kind of an average of scores from all the schools that they have visited and whatnot. And there were some areas where we did fall short. Now, and one of the things that they really stressed, I think, I wasn't able to be here, but one of the things I understand that they stressed when they spoke with y'all was just to make sure we understand this is district accreditation, not local school accreditation. I really felt like if it was each school's accreditation report, probably those scores would have been much higher. But when we're looking for continuity and systemicness in what we're doing, I think that was kind of their message. But on a positive note, that they really seem to stress that we come up with a good plan, that score will increase in 2 years, or whenever we submit the plan, if it's good and they feel good about what we're doing, that score can go up before 5 years. So, and I would expect that to happen.
Well, I mean, I know our people do a good job.
Yeah.
Just, like to be.
I didn't take it, and I don't think they meant it as any kind of indictment on the work of anybody really here. I think it's more of a paradigm shift. I mean, we have been very site-based managed. Yeah. We've had that philosophy for a long time in Madison County, and when you're doing a district accreditation process, the two don't play well together. So, but I think it is something that we have to. I think as a board leadership, as a system leadership, I do think it's something we do have to, really look at. We can always improve how we do business.
Absolutely.
And so I think as long as we take that message in that vein, then we definitely will get better from it. So.
Anyone else? Thank you, Tim.
And we'll get the final thing when, this is their report, but then someone else issues the.
The report you have now is the final report for this visit that has been.
Right.
That has taken place. We will submit an updated strategic plan, and then we will get feedback from that whenever we submit it, but within a 2-week window.
All right, Mr. Rainey is here to discuss the Sparkman Band program.
Good evening. My name is David Rainey, and I am the band director at Sparkman High School. I'm currently finishing my 18th year as an educator in the Madison County school system. I've served on the Alabama Bandmasters Association Board for 4 years as District 1 Chairman and Vice Chairman, and I have served on multiple committees within the ABA and the Alabama Music Educators Association. Thus far in my career, I have been blessed to have the opportunity to work with many different band programs and their students across the state by judging marching competitions and conducting honor bands. My experience has afforded me the opportunity to see just about every teaching environment imaginable across the Southeast. Before I moved to Sparkman, I was the director at Buckhorn High School for 12 years. I transferred to Sparkman in 2010, having a tremendous amount of respect for the faculty and staff at Buckhorn High School. My first year at Buckhorn, I taught computer applications, one class of band at the high school. I drove to New Market School and taught 2 beginning classes in the cafeteria because they did not have a band program at the time. I was told that due to the size of the school, they did not have enough teaching units to hire a band director like many other schools in our system currently. The following years, I taught 9 different subjects at Buckhorn High School, mostly computer related. I consistently had issues keeping students in band because of the lack of class periods offering to fit bands into a student's schedule. If a student needed to take a class that was scheduled during the same period as the band, they had to drop out. This had a drastic effect concerning the musical growth and development of our students. And I must say that I had some awesome administrators, Mr. Ledbetter, Mr. Evans, Mr. Minsky, Mr. Markham. They all worked very hard to try to help support the band program and its growth, and I really am very much appreciative in that. I was approached to come to Sparkman High School when I was not looking for a job. After I researched and weighed the pros and the cons, I found that the size of Sparkman High School, along with the unique makeup of the student body, has the potential to provide a uniquely strong music program while providing me stability with what I teach from year to year. Working at Sparkman has allowed Mr. Albert, the 9th grade band director, and myself to focus and devote our time on teaching music. It has allowed us to use resources to bring in additional help with instructors that is virtually impossible to afford in my previous job. We have 255 students that make up 2 marching bands, 3 concert bands, an indoor percussion ensemble, and 2 indoor color guard units that perform and competes in the fall and spring semesters. For over 6 years, we have had more students selected for All-State and Honor Band than any other school in our district. And next week, we will have more students attending All-State Band than any other school in the state of Alabama, regardless of their size, public or private. Mr. Albert has led our percussion section to an undefeated season for several years in the Southeastern Color Guard Circuit. Last year, they finished 18th in the WGI World Championships, and they will travel to the WGI World Championships in Dayton, Ohio next week with an undefeated record on the season. Our competition band has consistently won grand championship awards every year, and our wind ensemble has been recognized for their accomplishments at the Alabama Music Educators Conference. The Sparkman Band has many accomplishments, yet our program has not yet reached its full potential. In regards to the building of a new school and splitting the current Sparkman High School, my name and the Sparkman Band program has been mentioned in these boards meetings on a regular basis, despite the fact that no board member has ever made an effort to communicate with me concerning the issues it would involve. I have openly made myself available for years in every way possible.
topics concerning the Sparkman Band has been misrepresented and misunderstood in board discussions, and for this reason I felt it was imperative for me to speak with you today. Last month, Mr. Anderson said that the new school will provide opportunities for students to participate in band. The example was given that with 2 bands, there will be an opportunity to have 2 first-chair trombone players instead of just 1. Despite that being a completely false premise, we have 3 first trombone players at Sparkman High School, 1 for each of the 3 concert bands. We place the students in a band that they can experience success instead of being forced to place all of the students in a band that are all on different levels of proficiency. Music is categorized according to its difficulty, and not all students are on the same playing level. When everyone is forced into the same band, students are forced to play music that is not appropriate for them. This concept has served our students well, providing them with a tremendous amount of success on every level and a much higher retention rate than I have ever experienced in my previous positions. During the initial proposal of the new school, when asked about the cost of new uniforms and equipment for the band, Mr. Anderson said that the cost of the uniforms for the band will be taken care of by the system, and the split of resources will not be a problem. However, no one has approached me about the details, and I'm pretty certain that the board is not understanding the complexity of the task at hand. $100,000, that's the value of our percussion and electronic equipment that cannot simply be divided up and sent to a new school because they are either single instruments or they come as a set. $90,000 is a conservative estimate of how much the band uniforms will cost. $15,000 covers our golf cart and our semi-truck equipment trailer, but the most important part about our truck and trailer and equipment is the amount of work over the years that our band parents have put into that customization. We have multiple single instruments that will have to stay at one school or the other. Like there's a $19,000 E-flat contrabass clarinet, an $8,000 bassoon, a $6,000 bari sax, and $1,200 string bass. There's over $40,000 worth of music we perform from each year that took decades to acquire. No equitable way to divide $175,000 worth of school-owned instruments because they're all on different quality and conditions. There's no way to determine what's going to go where and who's going to get what. It was said in last month's meeting that the Bob Jones split worked out great for the band programs. But James Clemens received around $250,000 from their board for equipment and school-owned instruments for 83 band students. The following year, it was discovered that their estimates fell short, and the band had to take out an additional $53,000 loan on top of the booster budget to add the needed equipment, and is currently making payments on this loan each year. In addition, a state-of-the-art auditorium and band room large enough to put an indoor tarp was built so students do not have to have percussion and guard classes in a cafeteria like we do each and every day. I personally worked with the director at James Clemens as he was preparing for the opening of this new school. His requests were heard and they were fulfilled. I have discussed the topic of a new school with other educators at Sparkman for the better part of 4 years now, having many discussions over the past several months. I've worked with educators from other systems in the state with similar circumstances, such as Hoover. I have not had a single conversation with an educator familiar with Sparkman that felt building a new high school was the best solution for our students and teachers. In the meantime, politicians publicly criticize the educators that are trying to encourage the correct decision for our students. I find it disheartening to know that decisions concerning a new school is being made without regards of the educational benefits for students and teachers at Sparkman High School. No one besides our superintendent has responded to my emails, much less asked me for any other educator, or me or any other educator that I know, how this decision will impact Sparkman. Instead, everyone seems to be more worried about property values and other non-educational topics. Your job as a Board of Education member is to make decisions that is best for the education of our students and not for the benefit of any other purpose. If you want to buy and sell real estate, ask a realtor. If you want to do what's best for education, ask your educators. The superintendent is not one man that is speaking out about keeping Sparkman together. He is one man who is representing the whole group of educators that have not had a voice in the decision that is being forced on us. A new school is not the best solution for Sparkman Band. If a new building is to be built, it should be done in a manner that will not split our current resources. A 9-10, 11-12 split is not the best solution for the band, but it will certainly not devastate the program like a 9-12 school with inadequate facilities, faculty, and resources. In the band directing world, there's a saying: it takes a decade to build a program and 2 months to destroy it. Moving forward on this school project will devastate the current band program. It will take a decade to recover from this because both schools will not be able to support an open class indoor percussion group. Both schools will not be able to support color guard classes all year. And both schools will not be able to provide multiple concert band opportunities where students are placed on their proficiency level. And finally, both schools will not have the resources needed to compete on a national level. The question shouldn't be about the quantity of first chair trombones, but the quality of all programs, not just the band. I would like to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to express my concerns, and as I have said on many occasions, I am more than willing and happy to answer any questions you may have about our band program or share any ideas that may benefit any band program within our system.
You guys have any?
Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Rainey.
I'd like to make a motion to take about a 5-10 minute break.
All right.
I don't think you have to motion. Can we just take a break?
We're in work.
Well, then I'm asking for us to take a 5-10 minute break.
I'm with you on that.
Been there, done that. Karen, thank you.
Madison County Board of Education work session back in session, and we're on letter H.
All right, so this is a new school update. Want to talk a little bit about what we've been working on for the past several months and the progression of the school, and Carrie will kind of give Ms. Wilkerson will give a kind of a little outline of what, kind of on a day-by-day basis, what we've been doing. But again, as directed with the board, they were interested in feedback after the resolution was passed about the 11-12 configuration. That was our report that we had submitted to the Justice Department and LDF back in July. We're now seeking feedback from the community, and we have the meeting scheduled and coming up. We've already had one, but there's 3 more coming up, and even talking with some here, we may schedule more specifically by community and by school, and we're okay with that. I do want to kind of have those honestly wrapped up, if not by the first week in May, and so we can move forward with a recommendation on what kind of configuration we'll do. I do want to point out that we're not at risk of losing the BRAC funds. Huntsville passed a resolution, seeking negotiations. They've actually have approached me several times with that, and I've told them we are not interested in doing that. We plan on using all of our BRAC funds, and we are working with progressing towards doing that. And if there's not any questions for me or Karen, we can let Kerry get into his piece. Are there any questions first before Kerry kind of forget?
Are you going to hold any of those community meetings in large venues where a lot of people get you rather than just a small neighborhood or crowd control?
Well, the meetings were really not, and that may end up what happened. I think as far as the large venues, the large venue meeting, the downside of that is really what's the purpose of these meetings. If I wanted to disseminate information, getting 600 people together in a gym is a great way to do it. But if you guys wanted to get feedback from your community and have a conversation about that, or if I wanted to get feedback from the community to listen, that's not the best way to do it. And if it's to have multiple meetings where people can have a say, then I'm okay with taking the time to do that.
So the communities can contact you and say, we've set up a meeting, we want you to come so you can hear our views?
Me and Ms. Rucker actually just had that conversation, and so we're looking at setting up one in her community. We've got there's a couple of school organizations that we can do that. We talked about doing that with our community advisory committees or the parent advisory committees. We call them a couple different things there, or through the PTOs. So absolutely, if they want to invite me in and host in and invite the community, I think that's a great way to have a conversation with the community.
I just think something that the communities are more involved in setting it up themselves, and if nobody shows up, fine. If we let them set it up and let them do the advertising and passing it on, finish on it.
Yeah.
We provided them a free opportunity to speak.
And what I don't want to do is say, I'm going to show up here this one time, this is it, and I'm going to tell you what, I don't want, that's what I don't want. I'd rather it be hey, we would like to invite you in to discuss this.
As long as you're open to that, because I know you run a $100 million business. If you're open to the meetings, that's fine.
Yeah.
How are you recording these or documenting? Because how are you going to bring the feedback from those meetings back to this board, or board members? You can't convene it as a meeting unless you give proper notice.
Yeah,
so you're not setting them up as board meetings. So
Right.
how are you gathering this information to bring back to the board?
Well, we'll get with you and work on a good way to do that, whether it's a video or audio or minutes or something like that.
What they'd like to see.
We can stream it live.
There's no perception of it.
Absolutely.
You've said multiple times since Monday night that we are in fact not at risk to lose the money. Obviously, Huntsville City disagrees. That is very concerning to me.
Yeah, in Huntsville City, their angle is not if you're at risk of losing the money. It's almost, if you guys don't spend it, instead of going back to the state, they would like to do that, but we let them know that we intend to, and we have the full authority to do that, so.
Who is the authority on that? What are you basing your matter-of-factly saying that we are not at risk?
Karen, is it all right if I defer to you on that?
Absolutely. We have had conversations with several entities at the state level over the past 2 years. And the latest email we had was a year ago from the authority over these particular warrants and the compliance requirements comes from the state of Alabama Department of Finance, specifically the Department of Debt Management. And at that time, it was April, actually, 2015. You have to understand the IRS, that law. Well, let me finish my statement, and I'll go back to that. She said, we're not at risk. I won't name her, but she's the supervisor there in that entity. And she said, we're not at risk. Just please be careful and document any reasons for delay, which is a reasonable request. So, and in talking with the folks at the State Department of Education, again, they have no authority to legally report or legally make that decision. No authority to do that. But we spoke with Kerry Taylor, the state architect, as recent as today. Mr. Tom Francis, who's our bond attorney, that actually was the bond attorney for these state warrants. And in the 3-year, we have to remember, that's the IRS arbitrage law. And any tax exempt warrant, we are required to spend those down quickly because of the investment rate versus the interest rate that we're paying. Well, we know our interest rate is just, there's no risk as far as the investment rate exceeding that. So what happens, if they so choose to look at that in the June deadline, the 3-year deadline, under the arbitrage law, it's a penalty should they calculate that we have earned more in interest than we're actually paying on these tax exempt warrants. So usually, should that calculation reflect that we had, which we haven't, then, and in fact, these bonds are held at the state level. We don't receive them until we have spent the money and it's on a reimbursement type basis. They're not in a bank account here. They're held on our behalf at the state of Alabama Department of Finance. That's where they are. We have a $43 million balance. And we have been told by all the agencies, and again, I've requested something in writing, when the lady returns from vacation Monday, for an update as to where we are with these bonds from the Department of Debt Management, who oversees the compliance requirements. But back to the arbitrage thing. Typically, if your investment rate is higher, which it is not, we are penalized, but they charge a fee. The calculation is performed usually by the bond attorney to see where we are. Funds aren't taken. Funds are not forfeited. But so I know that these funds must be spent by in the stipulation. That's in all of your warrants. But in the state pool warrant, there's more flexibility because there's so many other school districts involved in this particular warrant. So say all the others have spent 90% of their funds and we've spent maybe 30% or 30%. That carries us through and gives us more leeway and flexibility too, as it was described to me by Tom Francis, our bond attorney. So we do absolutely need something current, up-to-date, definitive in writing. But, and I have requested that. The latest thing we had in writing was from the Department of Debt Management. And her assistant called me out of the blue, and I'll just explain this, about 2 weeks ago, explaining some of the steps that have occurred since the bond was sold and the proceeds were received on their behalf. And he said, I don't need to hear that. He said, you're fine. I'm just telling you, I know this is all verbal, it would not stand up in court, and I'm no attorney. But could you please send us something in writing? And he said, I can't, but my supervisor can, and she'll return it 2 weeks. And so, and again, under that 3-year, I don't know where all the confusion is, that's typically just just a penalty. We certainly can afford a penalty on these funds not being spent within that 3-year time frame. But it's never been, really, under the law, taking the funds away. It's a penalty. However, Mr. Nash, this is a unique situation. This state bond, even though it's PSCA money and revenue, it doesn't even fall under their department. So it's handled through the Department of Debt Management because it's a state bond and it's unique, so we do need clarification. And I understand the board's frustration with not having that at this time, especially considering what occurred Monday night at the Huntsville board meeting.
Right.
And just, I'm not so sure, I've been in touch with their CFO, that it was a legal issue with them, and it was more wheeling and dealing without contacting our school system. If you're not going to spend it, we can obligate it today. And with the steps we've taken already, we have obligated the funds, however, we do not have a contract in place, of course, as we're all well aware. And we certainly need to take steps, in my opinion, to move forward as quickly as we can.
So when do you expect to have something in writing? You said?
He indicated to me that she would return Monday the 11th, and his supervisor, and I said, I will be in touch on the 11th. And so I will be letting you know something next week.
And they're the Office of Debt Management. They are, in fact, the end-all, be-all authority on
Yes,
this,
sir.
not APSCA.
Yes, sir. And I received that from the I've been told that by not only them, but the PSCA director, the Alabama Building Commission director, that oversees PSCA funds, except for this particular one, and the state architect who is telling.
Well, thank you for understanding our frustration,
I
because
absolutely
the facts are we have 2 things in writing. One was the initial BRAC,
Yes.
the BRAC, the statement in that says that we must spend the money in 3 years. Well, now we have an entity that we're no different than us. We're 13 school systems. We're in the same situation. Everybody, including us, through this process, has always had June of 2016 in the conversation.
Yes.
So without something to clarify that very, very clearly, I will remain very nervous between now and April 11th when we can get something in writing.
I
So.
understand. And I may not can get it before it's back on vacation, but
Okay.
I will be in contact Monday.
Okay, well, please understand our urgency so that
I
you
do.
can.
I've had those concerns. And when the bonds were sold, I sent out that agreement, and that's in every bond issue and warrant, whether it's local bond, state bond, you have that 3-year stipulation. There is some flexibility anytime, as long as you've obligated those funds. And again, this one is really unique and different in the manner in which the bonds were structured.
Okay. But as a board member, I've kind of got a duty to read and believe what it says in the BRAC agreement, regardless of how it may work. It says what it says, so that's why I'm.
And, that's the way I understood it when Tom Francis explained it to us, that June 2016 was like some kind of magic time. And,
Oh, really?
yeah.
I mean, it says it in the BRAC agreement.
We've had so many conversations, again, they're verbal, except for the email I received this time last year. But he would be happy to speak with you again if you have questions. I'm not going to speak for him.
Well, I talked to him a little bit about it, when we had another issue and we were supposed to call him. Well, and he didn't that time, but when he came to us months ago, you know, that was, am I wrong? That was the date, right?
But
But I
what we
remember the
need
date.
is what
I
Mr.
mean,
Nash is requesting.
but
and
June
that's
Yeah,
today,
yes, yes,
confirmation
yes.
from
Yes.
In total, what percent of the BRAC funds have we spent? I know kind of the numbers, but as the young man said
We
earlier,
received
can't do the math.
57 million and we have about 43.
So we've spent right at ten.
And
This is
I'm the
why I
math
don't,
person.
thank you, I'm not.
But,
Neither can I be.
25.
25, okay.
And I'm not sure what the other systems looks like. Most of them, Huntsville City and Madison County obviously receive the bulk of the proceeds. So, those little pieces, I'm sure those have been spent.
Now, what have we spent the BRAC funding on? Which project?
Madison County Elementary School, renovation and expansion, and the purchase of land, and at the site and the architect's fee.
So just for clarification, those are the only two things that we're spending BRAC
The money will
funds on,
not stretch any further than that,
in those two projects. Okay,
based on the budget.
all right. Kerry?
Just real quick, I have did a timeline of the action we've taken since December. Without reading this whole timeline to you, you can look at it, but it basically says, this is correspondence, communications, and meetings, and it averages twice a week since January the 6th, since Monday, right after the holidays. Of course, the engineers and architect is still working full-time on that project. You can see, and what's most important, the line below the shaded line, 11th and 12th, and then the 12th of April, which is next week, that's when the design is complete. The 19th, the package goes out for bid. May the 17th, we will receive bids for the site package. June the 2nd, the contractor can begin work on the site. This will go, we only have one, you'll notice those are all asterisks at the bottom. We are looking at a small situation with the Nashville Corps of Engineers, and they rejected our permit request. They need some additional information. The engineers have already been out on site, they've already looked at it. They're putting it together, they're sending it up there maybe either tomorrow or Tuesday. That should be sent up to Nashville from the Decatur office. And hopefully it's not a big situation and they'll just clear it on and go ahead and give us their jurisdiction letter. So we get that permit.
Mr. Webster, you are aware before you can bid the high school, you have to have court approval, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
yeah.
your timeline on that is not realistic.
Well, I understood that we can bid it, we just can't receive them. I mean, we can't accept the bids or approve them. Is that correct? We can bid it, but not approve them.
Well, you can't hold, I mean, you're talking about a period of time, several months to negotiate a plan. We currently do not have a plan before the plaintiffs in the case.
No, we don't.
So we have to negotiate a plan, then we have to file it in court and give the court ample time to review the plan, to get an order back, and a bid would expire before you'd ever.
Yeah, a bid's
I don't know
probably
why
good.
you would go to the extent of, well, we can talk about that later, but that's just not a very realistic timeline on the bid for the high school.
Yeah. This is the site, you're talking about the high school only, the site. If the site follows under that same
Even the site
rule,
package.
then I don't need to.
The board will have to decide if they want to commit the funds to do the site bid, you know, before the high school itself is approved by the court. If they were to expend that money, but this says new high school to bid in September, so that's what I was reading, that very last line. We're just stating that's not a very realistic timeline.
How
So-
much time would you give the bidders?
To bid the project? You're talking about on the site itself?
No, in school.
On the school, once we give the plans out to the bidders, we'll give them 3 weeks. And we'll accept the bid in the 4th week. It'll be from the time we put the bids out to the bidders, to the time we receive the bids is about 4 weeks.
So you would expect by the end of September?
Yes, that's correct. Now, if we're waiting on that, do we, and I know we don't need to wait site work because of the weather, getting the summer weather, but if we can receive the bids and accept the bids and do the work on the site work, is that acceptable to the
That's a
Justice
different question.
Department?
We're not going to vote on that tonight. But if you separate the site from the school,
Yeah, and that's what we've done here to expedite the project.
which is what we tried to do a year ago.
Yes.
I'd still like to explore the possibility of using county resources and equipment to at least have some conversations with them, kind of like we did a year ago, to check their availability. It looks like we may be not entirely pressed for time if we're going to be waiting on approval from the DOJ, considering we haven't even submitted anything to them.
Can I just clarify? I just want to make sure I understand. You're saying that in order to take bids to build the building,
Yes.
we have to have the approval from the DOJ
From the judge.
from the judge to move forward?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understood that clearly, that we're referring to the building. Because I'm not sure everybody out here, when we start talking about site, building, bid, package, you're saying that we can do dirt work and make the site prepared.
That's a business decision you have.
Right, but you're saying that from a Department of Justice and Judge Heichel standpoint, we cannot start the building of the building
That's correct.
until they have just said, yes, you can go.
Because you'd be committing the full 40 years that you have left.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was, we were all on the same page.
And I still don't understand why, as part of the legal discussion, we can't separate the building, which could house either configuration. If we submit either compatible configuration, we can go petition for the building to go to school because it will house either, whichever we choose. I don't understand why we can't do that. It's a separable action to build a building and create configuration.
I have to accept that would be the full decision.
So we're going to have copies of these of progress available to anyone here. Do we need to, would you advise removing that September line
I think that's missing.
item since we've got to have court approval before we can actually bid
Yes.
the building? So can you just, I don't know, maybe just blackline that and then make a few more copies if there's anyone here that wants kind of a checklist of our work, what we've done so far?
Does this world deal with something, in my world, there's something that's called an RFI, request for information, where you release a prepackage and say, hey, take a look, is there something we're missing to get a feel of understanding? Does this construction world support that? Not asking for a full bid, but just get it out to the major construction, that you don't take a look at it and say, where are the holes in this package?
We actually do, and that's something, me along with the architect, we sit it down, and what we used to do is we pick, who did Jemison, who did Grissom, pick up somebody who's actually won some recent bids, so it's not just some site contractor. And for free of charge, it gives them a little bit of an early peek at some things.
If somebody's work is like consolidated or,
Yeah.
whatever, and say, hey.
Absolutely, because that's one thing, and we've been working on the school, of course, and one thing we've learned is masonry is a problem with all these bids everybody's getting. Masonry's the blow on it, masonry's what's costing so much, so we can do a lot more steel, high-density sheetrock, and have the same results. It's faster, and it's a lot cheaper than masonry. So that's some discovery.
I think you'll have time to do that.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to. We'll do that.
Thank you, Kerry.
I got some more comments,
Okay.
questions. Okay, Ms. Thompson just said that we can't start construction on the building until we have federal judge approval, correct? All right. We literally have not submitted anything to start that negotiated process. Ms. Massey, here's what makes sense to me, all right? You've submitted the 9, 10, 11, 12 grade configuration to the Department of Justice. You're having public hearings to get feedback on what appears to be just that. I don't know if you're getting feedback on zone lines or what exactly the intent of your meetings are. Will you very quickly, immediately, if tomorrow, just submit the committee's preferred zone lines, whatever those are? It's obviously going to be an iterative process of back and forth, but we can do this in parallel with your discussions with the 9, 10, 11, 12, that idea. But I see no reason to go ahead and submit a zone line as a starting point to negotiate with the Department of Justice. As a matter of fact, they recently gave us direction that, if I remember right, that they would like to be involved in having discussions with the committee, with the community, but they will not do that until we submit a zone line as a starting point. Are you willing to do that?
Well, I didn't submit a plan. You know, that plan was submitted on behalf or at the direction of the board.
Whoa.
I'm not in contact with the Justice Department. And that submittal, we do have a submittal to the Justice Department. We've had it there since the very late end of July.
Did we approve that submittal?
You directed that submittal.
I disagree, but go ahead.
The attorney couldn't have submitted it without your direction. So there is a submittal to the Justice Department, and they were working on that. Now, they also have the committee's zone line. That was actually part of the submittal, was of what the zoning committee came up with. So they have that too.
But I'm sorry, go ahead.
But what changed and what kind of paused all that was the resolution in, was that March? So now, this is a big, a change in direction, and before we go forward with it, I mean, we could have them continue with, if they're going to continue on with anything, it's the 11-12, but since that resolution was passed, they're not continuing on with that. So we're expediting community meetings this month to get feedback. I'll bring it to the board for the 11-12 configuration. I think I can do that in next month. And
but if you submit a zone line, the Department of Justice and the NAACP will be involved in that process. But they have told us until we submit a zone line, and yes, you included zone lines in your submittal of the 11-12 grade configuration. How many zone lines did you submit with that?
as part of our submission. I think it was just the committee's recommendation. Is that correct, Cindy?
8 to 10 or something.
Okay, it kind of showed.
What they received was a report of what the committee did, the process with the committee from the beginning to the end.
Right,
So
which
all the
included.
that they looked at, they received.
I think it was more than 8.
But we clearly said
I was
this was the
trying to count
committee's.
by letters, and then
Oh.
maybe some duplicate letters, but.
But it was, this was what the committee came up with. And at the last, our last meeting, work session, I have some great concerns with that final zone line. And before I submit a zone line, I would like to give, kind of echo in with, we're just now hearing maybe what are the possibilities with an 11-12 configuration. I'm sure Mr. Rainey's is not the only program that is affected, whether we do a grade 9-12 or 11-12 configuration. And we're making a decision that's going to affect the direction of this school system for the next couple decades.
Right.
And I think, we've been in this process now for almost 36 months, almost 3 years, and we've made progress, the last 4 months since I've been on the board, more than the 15 months before that. And I think one more month to try to gain some feedback from the community members before we move forward in this is, it is worth our due diligence to do that, to listen to the people that put us here, honestly. So I think
what I'm
we owe
trying
that to
to
the community.
point out to you is my opinion that the Department of Justice has told us, you just got to do this, and we're back in the conversation. All we have to do, that's not going to be the final zone line. That's just based on what I've read as the way the process works. It's a negotiated deal, but they will not start negotiating until you submit something.
We have submitted something. We submitted in July, and
Wait,
we had, and it was
Ms.
on
Thompson,
3-2.
you
on
have
3-2, and two board members said they would be willing to listen to the community and consider the 11-12 plan.
As I understand.
So I will bring that up, and guess what? If the 11-12 plan passes the board contingent on, the federal court approval, then we're ahead in the process. And so before giving up on a plan that we've been working with the DOJ on for the last 8 months, we'd like one more chance to kind of see it through. And that will
looking
expedite
forward.
the school to do that.
I'm looking forward to that conversation. I'm just pointing out that it would be much more productive if the Department of Justice and the NAACP was involved in that. In other words, we would, in parallel with those public hearings, be getting feedback from the Department of Justice as opposed to what you're proposing, which is go through a month or whatever, 2 months of public hearing, which I'm very in favor of, by the way. But I think those public discussions would be much more productive by bringing in the Department of Justice now, because in the event that after all of these public hearings, we get to the point and we end up not doing the 11-12, in my view, we've wasted time that we could have been running both of these paths in parallel, getting feedback from all levels. But you'll be getting feedback through these public hearings with the Department of Justice being excluded from the conversation.
Did you get any indication which plan would be expedited quicker through the Department of Justice, whether it be 11-12 or 2 9-12s?
I'm not going to discuss this
Okay.
in public. I can discuss it in executive session, but it is pending litigation.
Okay.
And my thoughts are not necessarily about my opinion on one direction or the other. Both sides of this argument, I think, if they think about it, why not put these two paths in parallel? Because we can very easily do that.
You say make 2 recommendations to the Justice Department?
You've submitted the 11-12 to the Department of
We
Justice.
submitted the 11-12 plan.
That was never approved by the board.
I never sent an email to the Justice Department to say this is, that was at board direction to submit that. I mean, we can try to avoid it, but we need to own that that was our submittal. And that was in July. And in March, we said, you know what? That's not what we're looking at right now, but we'll listen to the community. It's time to listen to the community. In fact, we got a couple of them on the agenda. And we're going to be talking to them in their communities. And so, that's what the board has directed. I'm not comfortable with recommending the zone lines that came out of the committee at this time.
I'm not encouraging you to make a recommendation. I'm encouraging you to put one in front of them, which was what they have asked. They will no longer continue this discussions with us until, they specifically asked us to do that, regardless of the zone line.
They're looking for us to submit a zone line if we're not going to do an 11-12. We can't just say, well, we're going to do an 11-12, get started. We have to submit this is what we are recommending. So before we do that, I want to follow up through with what we've been doing for the last 8-9 months on this. And
which
in a
is
few
what?
more weeks on the 11-12 plan, and talk with the community. We've done it with us, and we thought that this would be something that we're all new to this with the timeline on this, but it's if this is something that the board approves, the 11-12 plan next month, then we're ahead of the game and we can get back on track, and it's.
But if the board does not, you're behind the game.
Yeah, so it would slow down 4 weeks, and 4 weeks is less than the last 9 months. It's also less than the 15 months that it took to pick the land. And so when we made this contract this deal in May of 2013, but we didn't purchase land until October of 2014. That was a year, and that's okay. But to say, well, no, we don't have time, we don't have 4 more weeks to listen to the community, I'm not okay with that.
I'm not saying that we don't have 4 weeks to listen to the community. Based on this timeline, we've got more time than that. But again, you are, when it comes to Department of Justice and the ultimate judge approval, which we were just told we can't start construction until that's approved, you can cover both paths in parallel.
If the 11-12 is not approved, I'll be immediately ready to recommend zone lines in next month.
Okay. Why will you not submit a zone line now for the beginning of negotiations with the Department of
The zone
Justice?
line that the committee has now, I have great reservations in submitting that, and the reasons that I gave at the last meeting, and I'll go back over those again at the next meeting. I don't have that prepared today.
And I think,
But that zone line, I am not comfortable with recommending that.
okay,
So are you saying you're gonna, just make sure I understand what your plan is. You're gonna come to the May meeting with feedback from these meetings that you're having, and if the board says no to the 11-12 concept, then you immediately have, so where's your community input into those zone lines if you're not gonna take the community zone lines?
going to ignore the community.
I did not say I was going to ignore it. I said I have great reservations, and I'm not comfortable tonight to submit that zone line to the Justice Department. We've yet to even get feedback really on that, and I think we'll get some here in a few minutes.
well, here's the thing about zone lines. You, and everyone involved here are going to have reservations about any scenario of zone lines. It's a very, very difficult process. But it is a process. You can't cross the finish line unless you cross the starting line. And I'm not understanding why you're refusing to do what the Department of Justice has asked.
The Justice Department is not asking me to submit the committee zone line. In fact, the committee,
They have asked you
when
to
it was
submit a
formed,
zone line.
the committee was, no, they asked to say, what are you doing? Because what you've asked us to look at for the last 8 months, you now said you don't want to do. And so they're basically saying, when you guys figure it out, let us know and we'll get back going. So we've got to figure it out, and we need to not waste time doing that. And so it's, but the committee's task was to, we weren't obligated to absolutely submit that. That was not a binding thing. It was to take their input, and I still am. And that is still in consideration, but we need feedback on that plan too, and that's what we're doing here and as we move forward.
But you understand, have you read the direction from the Department of Justice? They want to have conversations with the committee, but said that they will not do that and start those conversations until a zone line is submitted. I'm not advocating for any zone line. I'm not advocating in this conversation 11-12 or 9-12. I'm advocating for efficiency in moving forward, and I don't think we're doing that.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter what zone line, you're just saying submit a zone line of something, or you want the committee's?
Absolutely, it matters to me when the time comes to approve zone lines. It's not this board's job. We are not the deciders of the zone line. The Department of Justice is not, and the NAACP is not. The way the process is set up and supposed to work, the three of us are supposed to get together and negotiate, deliberate, whatever word you want to use, and collectively come to something that we can put in front of the judge. And those three parties, in doing that and putting that something together, includes having conversations with the community, getting community input. Community input without having feedback in parallel with the Department of Justice, I think is terribly inefficient and wasting time. So you won't submit a zone?
I'm not going to submit the zone line. I'm not prepared to submit the zone line before we've even had the community input from it.
Again, whatever I'm asking you to submit, whatever zone line, is not a recommendation of a zone. It is to start.
You're asking for that zone line. It is a recommendation of a zone line.
It is a starting point of negotiation. They may look at it and say, send it back tomorrow and say, there's no way this is going to work. But at least that conversation has started.
But if we can look at that as a district and go, there's no way this is going to work, why are we going to submit something and say, by the way, there's no way this is going to work? There's one person that is not zoned to the new school that lives 500 yards from the new school.
And
That lives the closest of any house to the new school, is not zoned for the new school. There's other students that are driving by Sparkman High School. There are major issues with this. If we're going to submit something, a zone line, it needs to be of something that makes sense. And that's all, that will take one more month to do that. Right now, I'm not prepared to submit a zone line that I have major issues with. And I'm not prepared. I'm not willing to do that right now.
Again, we're going
If
to have.
anything, if the board would pass another resolution to say, we're going to consider an 11-12 school and let the Department of Justice get back on track, I'm not the one that paused this process. If they would submit another resolution, we could do that and we get back on track. And then we could come back and reverse course again next month. So, I mean, if it's, let's just listen to the community and then we'll move forward from there.
I just think we started last month listening to the community. We have no let's go for 8 months.
I hate we didn't start it in 2013. All right, well, any other comments before we can enter our special session?
All right, at this point, Madison County Board of Education will move into special session.
I think we have some addendums. We need to add, I need to add in executive session for litigation purposes. For the agenda, please.
I'd like to add to the agenda a resolution for consideration.
Am I being asked to add that to the agenda? I would like to see the resolution before adding it to the agenda, if that's all right. Does it have to be on the agenda to be?
Well, the board president can add it to the agenda.
Okay. Have you seen it?
I have seen it.
Okay. Ms. Thompson, have you seen this?
Yes.
Okay, so this essentially is a resolution asking what Mr. Nash was requesting, that I submit the committee's zone lines. Is that pretty much it?
Not as an approved zone line by this board, but as a request to start the process of efficient discussions and conversations with the community, Department of Justice, NAACP, the committee that we commissioned, and this board.
Well, considering we're about 3 minutes away from listening to community feedback, I'm not willing to do this. If you would, like to add this, you may. Make that recommendation.
Mr. Nash, you do have the right to introduce it during board member comments.
Right, let's do it like we did last time.
Okay.
And I don't have a problem adding it. It deserves the opportunity to be voted on.
And if you're not willing to recommend it as part of the agenda, you pursue your agenda. Mr. Nash, you understand what your rights are as a board member during that time. at the end of the meeting, correct?
Angie said she'd add it.
Are you gonna add it?
Yeah, I can add it.
Okay.
So it will be added.
Will that be after the executive session? We'll do that, or
I
before?
would do it before.
So
We have an H and an I.
H and an I, that's assuming that you recommend a agenda.
What?
Do what?
H and I and a J,
Assuming
right?
that I,
You recommend an
H and I
agenda.
and a J.
so if I don't recommend approval of agenda, is that,
No, if you don't recommend an approval of the agenda, you still have the right to bring it up as we done at the conclusion of the meeting. You can handle it that way.
I'm having trouble hearing you guys.
He
Y'all
said,
get it worked out?
What if you refuse to recommend an agenda? Actually, under the procedures, you approve an agenda as a formality.
well, we've had no votes on agendas recently, right?
Well, that's fine. I'll still do the resolution at the close of the meeting. Huh?
Just take it off.
We haven't had
Okay.
no votes, but we haven't not had an agenda not pass.
Okay, so currently it's item H on the agenda, is that right, Ms. Thompson?
I thought they just took it
Well,
off.
they just
Well,
took it off, so.
Jeff
If
said
you're
that,
not
but I
willing
think
to
the board
recommend-
president can, I'm gonna recommend the agenda. I
Okay.
mean, this is
Okay.
just, seeing the legalese at the moment of a board meeting is,
So now you have to recommend it.
do you wanna have a meeting? I recommend approval of the agenda dated for April 7, 2016.
Motion.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 We're fixing to hear from some community members, I think, requesting to address, you wanna start this?
Okay, so we have two community members, I'm trying to find my timer here, who have requested to address the board. Each member will, each guest will have 5 minutes. And at that time, you cannot, what is it, they can't talk about?
Good name and character.
Can't talk about good name and character, anyone.
Oh, it's
who is
actually general
employed.
reputation and character. I'm sorry, I've been doing this too long. Use the wrong
So
name.
our first guest is Lee Brock.
By the way, Mr. Anderson, I did email all of you and invite you to our town hall meeting as well. So you will not have to rely on Mr. Massey to bring information back. You are more than welcome to come yourself. We would love for you and Mr. Vest to be there, especially. My name is Lee Brock, and I am a Harvest resident. And I will tell you that I am very proud that my son is a class of 2015 Spartan Senator. So this apparent aversion to investing in one of our high schools is a mystery to me. He graduated from Spartan with 22 hours to take to the University of Alabama with him, all because Spartan is a large school. Those were all due to AP classes. That equated to almost $11,000 that we do not have to pay to the University of Alabama because we spent $90 per AP exam at Spartan. Ms. Dyer talked to you all last meeting about how Spartan was a have-not school because the classes were so large, and how the other schools were actually haves because they had smaller classes. And I sat and listened to her feeling like she was not comparing apples to apples, because what she did not tell you is that, and I'll use Buckhorn for an example because they have about 1,400 students, and that's about the number that the new Monrovia High School will have. Yes, Spartan might have 600 students per class, whereas Buckhorn will have about 350, but Spartan also has 100 certified teaching units, whereas Buckhorn has about 70. Spartan has more square footage, more classrooms. They have almost double the amount of AP courses offered, which is almost $10,000 worth per student of college credit opportunity. So large does not mean overcrowded. And if you look at a 5-year growth study that a member of our group will show you eventually, maybe next meeting, Buckhorn actually has a higher capacity and a larger expected growth than Sparkman. Sparkman is actually not at capacity anymore. So Ms. Dyer and the social media page that is just perpetuating misinformation it's almost becoming offensive. This social media page, which I'm sure you all have seen and are aware of, is disrespectful. This backbiting has really become something that we all feel that we have to speak about. And we apologize for being so late in the game. But some of their concerns are their students' personal relationships with their students. My son did not know all 100 teachers at Sparkman, but he did know the ones that he had. And do they remember him? They might not. But does he remember them? Absolutely. And the fact that they don't remember him does not lessen the impact that they have had on his education and his life. The lunchroom is a problem, but if we spend the money to do a Sparkman expansion, that problem can be alleviated. Guidance counselors, I'm not understanding how an underfunded high school is going to make that problem any better. And the concern that is always my favorite on this social media page is my child doesn't get enough time on the field during sports. Well, considering that less than 6% of high school students go on to play college sports in any sport, I'm not sure that we need to spend $43 million to have a rec ball league. So the social media mentality is really, again, a mystery to me, because their attitude here is that our children deserve the best. But I, again, do not understand how an underfunded high school with no athletic facilities, no auditorium, one gym, used furniture, how is that the best? And if they still feel like that is, why do the other kids in this county not deserve the best? Why do the kids in Hazel Green not deserve the things that they need? Or the kids in, I'm not sure where the other of you represent, but I know that there are schools all over this county who have projects that should be addressed. And I'm not understanding why other members of this county are not asking themselves and you and their county commission representatives why such a huge portion of this money is going to one district. And Ms. O'Bannon, I believe, did say that the biggest chunk that has been spent was for the expansion and renovation of Madison County Elementary. But we have been led to believe in the Monrovia community, and I believe it was on purpose for the last year, that we could only build a new high school.
Dan Chitwood? Oh, I thought you were leaving.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board. I have a presentation that I'm hoping can be shown here. And I may deviate a little bit from this presentation just because of where the conversation's gone tonight. So I'm a resident of Harvest as well. I've got 2 children at Legacy Elementary. And me, my family, my kids, we're really looking forward to this opportunity to go to Sparkman High School. It looks like a great school, and we want that opportunity. So I apologize also for getting into this game late. So I just started looking at it. But I started thinking to myself, if we're going to build a new high school, let's ask some simple questions, easy questions. Do we need a high school? Do we need a new school? Can we afford the new school? Is it fair? Under each of those are difficult answers, not because it's necessarily difficult to answer the question, but because nobody wants to say no. Do we need a new high school? Is Sparkman overcrowded? Does it have limited opportunities? Can we afford a new high school? The additional O&M, the debt costs, what will those be? Can we afford it? Will that facility be sufficient to meet the needs and desires and give the opportunities to the new students? And then finally, is it fair? The rest of the county, if you're spending 80% of your BRAC money at one school, Is that fair? What about the students that remain at Sparkman? You're splitting their population in half, removing some of their opportunity. And then the students at the new school, will they have the ability to do what they want? As we heard from other people tonight, one of the main benefits of our school district is the family setting. And if we have the way the zone lines are split right now, my daughter will go to Monrovia Middle School and then possibly go to Sparkman and leave her friends, her family behind as they go to the new school. All right, I don't have the answer to the bottom two. I'm still evaluating myself, but I'm pretty certain that this need is not there, and I'll go over that briefly. So how did we get here? 6 years ago, it appeared that the student population at Sparkman was growing rapidly. Since that time, it's stabilized. In fact, it looks like it's actually declining. Bottom line, Sparkman High, Sparkman 9th are not currently overcrowded. There is no need. If you looked at the population trend from 2005 to 2010, I understand why everyone would be screaming, we need a new high school. I looked at that and I said, that's a linear growth. I'm a scientist. That's how we think. I looked at that and I said, you're going to be, if I was here, I would have said, you will be over capacity in the 10th through 12th grade within a year or two. Even combining with the 9th grade academy, you will be over capacity by 2015. So where are we? We are not over capacity. We have not continued to grow. And like I said, in fact, it looks like it's actually decreasing in population. Currently, averaging over the last 6 years, the 9 through 10, or the 10 through 12 grades are at a 93% capacity. If you allow for expansion into the 9th grade academy, overall it's an 84% capacity. It's well utilized, not overcrowded. If you look at it at a closer level by grade to grade, I show the 9th grade enrollment at Sparkman over the last decade, actually since 2005. So yes, last decade. It's decreasing by about 11.5 students per year, pretty linear decrease. I'm not saying that's where it's going to go forever, but that's the way it looks. After 2010, the 12th graders follow the same trend. The increase, and part of what was seen back in 2008, 2009, 2010 in the overall population, overall student body, was largely due to the passing of the law requiring no dropouts before the age of 17. So this is that large increase in that time period. After that, it's followed the same trend. Again, Sparkman is not overcrowded. Now, one of the other things I've heard is that there's a lack of opportunity because it's so large. And I've heard several other people speak tonight. I'm not going to reiterate everything. The largeness does not limit opportunity. In fact, it probably increases opportunity. 17 AP courses, 13 pre-AP courses. Over half the student body is able to take AP courses. It's an 80% increase since 2013. They've got those medical and engineering academies. Other opportunities, 38 extracurricular clubs and organizations. Bottom line, Sparkman High School is not large, or it is large, but that does not mean it's overcrowded. Does not mean that there are fewer opportunities. If there is no need, do not build a new school. Spend the money on Sparkman and on the rest of the county. Thank you.
Thank you both. All right, we'll go to item C. We ready for any other comments or questions? I recommend approval of expenditures of board allocated funds as attached.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I recommend approval of resolution of donation of building on the campus of Madison County Elementary School to Graces of Gurley Incorporated as attached.
Motion.
Motion and second.
Yes, I've checked. This is the correct one.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Item E. I recommend approval of the lease agreement between Madison County Board of Education and Graces of Gurley Incorporated for the location of a Hills Clinic on the campus of Madison County Elementary School as attached.
Motion.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Congratulations to the
This would be great for that community.
Gurley
That'd be
community.
super.
And the Hills Clinic, do you want to explain a little bit what that is in case somebody don't know?
Yes, it's what, health
You didn't have to
on
say that.
schools. It's medical care on a school campus, separate from the school. And this one will have medical and dental. And the groundbreaking is on the 15th of April. And I hope you'll come. A lot of our children, of course, are able to, they have insurance, but transportation to a physician is sometimes a problem, and a lot of them have no dental care. So this is just going to be huge for them. Madison Crossroads has one, and I think David would say it's been great, hasn't it, David?
Well, our attendances went up tremendously since.
Right.
But my question is, why did we not donate it to them?
Deals is not set up to receive your product. And that's the
Madison
That's-
Crossroads is going to be.
Right, right.
And that's why you
Yeah.
see two
Yeah,
in
okay.
New Hope Children's Clinic is in New Hope.
Right.
Well, I read that. I was
That's it.
And with that, it's such a rallying point for the community. I want to also thank Chairman Strong, who donated a generator actually to the New Hope Clinic, I think earlier this week. So appreciate the donation of the generator to the New Hope Clinic. It's these clinics, these schools are making a tremendous impact. So it's a fun thing to get to work on. All right, I recommend approval of the following personal items along with the addendum as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Can I just quickly say that that included our lead nurse retiring, and as a fellow nurse, I don't see her here tonight, but we've got some very large shoes to fill, and we appreciate all the work she's done.
Absolutely. I think it's your turn.
Yes. Okay, so at this point, we'll go around the room and ask for any discussion from board members. We'll start backwards. Mr. Anderson?
Yep. No, it was down here for meeting dates.
I apologize, that's my fault. So, we had meetings set up for May. There seems to be a conflict of schedule with some central office conferences. Originally, those meetings were set up for May 5th. We've had a request to change that to either the 2nd or the 10th.
And the second, we actually booked that other community meeting on. We can move that if that's the date that works better, but I think it was the 2nd, 9th, or 10th. Is that right, Kim?
Does anyone have a problem with the 10th of May as being the work session? Would you need something other than a work session?
Wouldn't it be nice just to have a work session?
It would.
Wouldn't it be great?
Would you be ready for a personnel vote?
We would have some personnel action.
Sorry, Ms. No.
I'm sorry.
Sorry for bringing that up.
And those cannot wait.
Time of the year.
Those wouldn't be able to hold till the 5/19 board meeting?
Well, if it's just personnel, it'd be okay, Ken.
So you're saying for Ken, we will do it?
The problem is that's the time of the year when you're going to get a lot of information. It will give you a whole bunch to look at for the 19th.
All right, does anybody have a problem with moving the May 5th work session / personnel agenda to May 10th? Anybody have a scheduling conflict with that? Okay. And then previous to now, I believe we had not actually set up any, I think we just went through the end of the school year, which was May. And we've had a request also with regards to scheduling throughout the summer that we do our work session on June 2nd and our regular board meeting on June 21st. Does that cause any issue for anyone?
Probably not good on June
What would work better?
2nd. Following the week.
I will not be here the following week on the 9th, but would still be here on the 7th. Does the 7th still work for you guys?
Tuesday the 7th?
Yes, ma'am. That would be the work session.
I won't be able to be here on the 7th, but we can have everything prepared for you guys long in advance.
Sure. So, right now, we would have May 10th as a work session, May 19th as a board meeting, June 7th as a work session.
21st is not. I'll be at the SSA conference that week. And the ASB is
ASB is the 23rd.
the week is, yeah. Or is it before that? It's the weekend
It's
before.
before you.
Oh, no, Heart Failure Association. Sorry.
The last week in June, or if we need one.
That would be the 30th would be the Thursday.
Do we need
Does
to that
that-
month, Ken, or?
We could do, and I've already got it, I'm gonna reschedule my 7th. We can handle everything we need to on the 7th.
Jeez,
Or,
we're up on the 7th.
or even if you wanted to do the 9th, we could do it, we could just have that one meeting for that.
That
We'd be able to
I
get
can't
quite
do
a
the
bit.
9th.
Pardon me?
I can't do the
Okay,
9th.
the 7th.
Of course, I don't.
There's one meeting in June though, okay?
I'm assuming it's going to be very long if we have one meeting in June.
You're just gonna get a lot of hires in that, at the June time period. The way the postings will run for new positions and the closing period, the principals aren't gonna have enough time to interview and get those recommendations until later in June.
Should we do the last week in June? That'd be a good time.
So you do want to go ahead and have one June?
Because otherwise it's gonna be into July before
Either
you can
that or
actually have the
that
hires
very first
approved.
week in July, if you only wanted to have one in June, so we could.
The very first week in July is the 4th of July.
Yeah,
Let's do
that's
the
fine.
last week in June.
We're probably better off having one in June, so that way we can go ahead and.
June 30th?
Is June 30th good for most?
And that's just a regular meeting.
Yes, June 30th would be a board meeting. June 6th would be a work session with likely a personnel agenda attached, correct?
June 6th or 7th?
I'm sorry, June 7th.
7th.
Then there was also a request to have 8/4, which would be the first Thursday anyway.
You would have a meeting in July.
No, I skipped
Okay, that's all.
July. No. I was going by the email that requested when central office needed one. So, yeah, pretty much I skipped July. Do we need 2 meetings in July?
Probably.
There's a lot of hiring goes on now. The 4th would be actually the second day of school, so we could do, that would be that last big push right before.
Okay. So you need a work session on August 4th and 2 meetings sometime in July, but we can't do the 1st and the 3rd as normal because of the holiday. Is that correct? Will most people not be here on the 7th?
I'll be here, ma'am, I don't know.
I'll be here.
Sorry,
I have
Think
a
like me for a minute.
conflict. If we could do that another day, that would be great.
How about July 12th? I know it's a Tuesday instead of a Thursday, or July 14th.
That week is mega conference, so a lot of the staff
But-
is on that week.
But I'll be here and we could still, we'll have a good bit of staff members gone, but we can still hold a meeting though. Don't you think, Ken?
Pardon me, sir?
We could still hold a meeting that week, right?
That's fine.
We just would.
And that, would July 21st be better?
That would be a good day.
Would that,
Then you're only going to have really one in July.
Well, we're gonna do one on June 30th,
Okay.
so that's only just 3 weeks later, so that's not.
So that works.
So 7/21 would be a singular meeting for the month of July.
Yes.
I would rather do that than have them back to back. It's not a, spaced out's better than putting them back to back.
Okay. And then we'll return to first and third during the month of August, the first Thursday being the 4th, which would be a work session, and the third Thursday being the
18th.
oh,
That's good.
mhm.
Have to have
Mhm.
first budget hearing when, Karen?
And then at that
We're gonna do
point,
the 4th and the 18th,
mhm.
you know.
Is that
In
good with
August.
you?
And then presumably, we would continue on with our first and third, starting in
Yes, if you're
September.
asking.
Work session on the first, board meeting
Well,
on the
you do
third
need to be
Thursday,
here.
unless anybody has a conflict with that. That would be September 1st. What you talking about, sister? And September 15th. It's not usually that, right? It's usually
It's 5th, September 5.
It'd be the 5th. So 9/1 and 9/15?
Mhm.
And then October, of course, would be October
6th.
6th and 20th, which would be the first and third again. Everyone fine with that?
You write these down? You wait, make it down.
We'll bring cake.
October 6th is fall break. Angie. October 6th is fall break, so we need to do the 2nd and 4th that month.
What?
Okay for
Set
you?
date?
Or just one meeting that month.
Is one meeting okay in October? Do y'all
I mean,
want
it
to?
should be. We don't have to have work sessions every, I know Ms. Stowe loves some work sessions, but
With
Do,
budget
I like
hearings,
to
is
know
the
what's
one-
going on.
But I can do, week that, September 1st, September 15th.
Yes, we're talking about October. Do you, for budget or anything, need 2 meetings in October? Okay, and so we should be good.
Yes, but I'll have to. And that's the day we have.
Is that okay? So October, one meeting on the 13th? I don't know, I split the middle.
Yeah, 13th is fine.
We usually try to do it before the 15th, so she can submit it, before.
The day off would be,
Would it be better to move that back to Tuesday? The 13th? It's not a big problem.
The 13th?
What's the date then?
oh, no, we never voted.
September 13th instead of the 15th.
It might be a long night, though.
Yes, no.
September.
September 13th instead of September 15th, in order to accommodate submitting on time. And then October, we were going to have one meeting because of fall break. And that could be the 20th, which would be the third Thursday.
Okay.
And now I'm tired.
Okay.
And then the first and third Thursdays in November are fine, and at that point, we'll,
Actually,
you will be.
you need to have
Mhm.
a
Early.
board meeting a week after
The vote.
the vote. Because you have to give probate time to certify the votes.
Which is November 8th. So technically, we could have a work session on the 3rd, and then a 17th would be a week and 2 days.
It's a board of Senate, a brand new,
Let's
so
do
you
the
have a work
10th.
session on
Let's do the
Because
10th.
we just want to spend time with you, okay?
Oh, well, thank
Because
you.
then it
I would
means-
try. I'll sacrifice. I would recommend you
So
do
you're-
that, you wait till after the election.
Yeah,
So you'll have a
I would
session.
do it.
let's do the 10th.
Does the 10th give enough time for probate?
No.
Judge, to finalize, or do we need to wait until the
Just do
17th?
the 3rd. So,
Yeah, usually it's within 3 days.
Okay, that'll
2
be,
days.
that will be 2 months in a row with only one meeting.
That's on
You could do
We
the
can-
17th.
We can always call another one.
We'll, yeah, we'll just leave it at 11. we'll leave it at 11:17, and that's where I'm going to stop, because at that point, we will likely have two new board members less.
I would.
You never know.
Why?
What?
Make you do it.
You never know.
You won't be showing
So-
up. You won't even.
Just to clarify, May 10th is a work session, May 19th is a board meeting, June 2nd is a work session, 7th. And then June 30th is a board meeting, July 21st, August 4th and 18th, September 1st and 13th, October 20th, and November 17th.
Correct.
I think I have that.
We'll get those. Priscilla will confirm that for you.
All right, and now we're prepared to go around the room. Start with Mr. Anderson. Mr. Vest. Pretty sure Buckhorn's shooting in the archery tournament right now, so we don't have any results yet, so we'll find out. State. Second place, you got? Well, we'll live with second. We're so used to first, though.
Is that second in the
State.
state?
Yes.
Talk about equitability, I mean, what's the deal with
We're really good at it.
we gotta do something with our archery.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe one of our founders is Mr. Perkins.
I know.
And so.
I know, that's why I'm looking at him.
Well, Legacy has a team, and he was there too. Did you?
Mhm.
So Legacy performed today too. So.
We need to work on all our middle schools, we need to work on this. That's a big thing. Are you arching and doing something with middle school?
All right, Ms. Stowe, anything from your district?
Mr. Massey and I went to an engineering day at Madison County Elementary on Tuesday. It's part of their project Lead the Way, so it was very interesting. They had drones there for them to look at. Didn't have permission to fly them in Gurley. That's serious, So, but and some virtual, stuff. So it was fun for the kids. Plus, they had an ice cream truck. But I did have an opportunity several weeks ago. This is the first time y'all have asked us to be able to say anything. To go out to Madison Crossroads and be a part of their, what do you call it? Instructional rounds. And it was just great to, there's some great things going on at Madison Crossroads. And I was very honored to be asked to go. And, it's an exciting place to be.
Mr. Nash?
I have a couple of things. I would like to get Ms. Thompson to read our resolution and request it be presented for board consideration. Obviously, based on our conversation tonight, I'm very, very concerned about the urgency and the way that we're going about the new high school issue. And because of that, I'd like to make a suggestion. Let me first point out that, for example, I have trouble believing that we truly have a sense of urgency when these public hearings that we're having, which again, I'm very in favor of, but they're each 20 days apart. Even if we do get written confirmation that we are not bound by the June 2016 deadline, I still believe that doesn't take away the sense of urgency. We have a school system to run. We're continuing to bog ourselves down with this issue, regardless of the outcome. The 5 of us, actually the 6 of us, have got to start being leaders and efficiently move forward, regardless of the outcome. So what I'd like to suggest, this is going to fix everything, but it will at least add a layer of accountability to the process. I'd like to ask the board to consider, much like we do some of our other subcommittees, for example, Finance Subcommittee, Teacher of the Year Committee, those types of things. I'd like to propose that we formulate a 1 or 2 person subcommittee of the 5 of us, and that those 1 or 2 people, whatever that subcommittee ends up being, if you guys are in favor of it, be invited to and involved more of as an observatory role, be invited to and hopefully attend as many meetings as our day job would allow, any meeting related to the new high school, whether it be community meetings, design meetings, construction meetings, media relation meetings, have a chance to be involved and be made aware of any press conferences that may be scheduled and called without our knowledge. So I'd like to get you guys' feedback, and if it's appropriate, I'd like to see if we can take some nominations. And
I nominate Mr. Back and Mr. Adams, since it was your idea.
Okay. I take that to mean you're in favor of having a committee?
This is a committee to do what now? To do the press conferences, everything you mentioned, or just?
No, to
be present.
To be involved in the process.
Yeah. I think everyone's invited, to all board members are invited.
I invited every board member to our meeting.
Right, right.
We
But,
would love.
I'm sorry?
We would love to have.
The public input is part of what I'm proposing. It's possible, quite likely, that you'll have more than the committee board members that are there. It's more about the architectural design meetings that Mr. Massey and the construction staff, those types of meetings, so that we can be involved in that and be able to report back to the rest of the group what happened, and kind of the way just really to add a layer of being informed and accountability to the process. Because I continue to be concerned that, are we really moving forward with a sense of urgency? I've said it repeatedly tonight, I'm concerned that we're not, and I think a 2-person subcommittee could go a long way to asking questions as to, again, regardless of the outcome, if we are truly moving forward in a productive way. Any objection from?
I have no objection to that. I do think it'll be difficult, even in a 2-member committee, to always expect those 2 people. I think that we all ought to.
Right.
If you would be that committee person, chair / with 5 people, you can only have so many people on a committee.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we should all be made aware of when any of these events are happening. And if you can't go or someone else can't go, we should make an attempt to always be present as an observer, if possible, have someone. My concern is assigning 1 person. You're asking a tremendous lot of any one of us.
Yeah, and maybe I should clarify, that's a good point. I or any of us would be naive to think that we would have the time to be at every single event or meeting. That's just not possible.
Yeah.
When it comes to community meetings or these design meetings, this subcommittee idea is not intended to replace any of the 5 of us involvement. It's to, again, add a layer of accountability to the process that we've been.
So this is a committee, the name of the committee was to ensure that the Madison County school system runs in a more productive manner. I mean, is that?
I didn't propose a name of it.
Is that getting into the day-to-day operations? Are we good? I mean.
Again, let me emphasize the word that I used.
Because on the schedule and the insinuation of not being productive, I mean, you guys have been, on those meetings with the architects, or I don't think, Mr. Wilkerson, if you want to go with him to every meeting, you're welcome to do that. Now, when it comes down to decision-making, things there of, what we're going to do, I mean, that's kind of I know you kind of did that in the role before with Dr. Copeland. Is this a committee of one? Is that a thing? Is there a committee of one? Or-
Well, you kind of
I think it should be two.
okay.
I think it should
Well,
be two.
the finance
We do
committee
have
has always
committees.
historically been one person. So with a 5-member board, you only have so
And
many.
let me emphasize a word that I used in my first description of this. It is a observatory role. It is not by any means intended to get in the weeds of the day-to-day operations.
And you
of the
guys have
system.
that ability right now. I mean, you don't have to designate a committee to do that.
Okay, I'll give you an
Everyone-
example. I pointed out the being involved in media relations and press conference. Day before a board meeting a while back, you called a press conference the night before one of our board meetings and made as it were, a fact presentation in a press conference that was, number one, not the will of the board. Your message was not. I mean, it could have been, but we didn't know. We hadn't voted on anything at that point. That's an example of an added layer of accountability in this process. Like I told you the night after that board meeting, I thought that was a dark day for Madison County and Madison County school systems. That press conference being handled that way. I thought that was a terrible mistake, and I think this board should know about those sorts of things before they happen, and statements of fact that have not been discussed, much less voted on. I'd like to be more
Considering
informed.
that resolutions are being brought in front during the board meetings, which happened on that day, before there was going to be a resolution at a board meeting on that press conference was to get the word out about something that wasn't on the agenda and hadn't been talked about publicly. So, I mean, that's, you're welcome to come to be a part of any meeting we have there, Dan, and so is any other board member. And you're welcome to form whatever committees you want to do to make sure we're performing in a productive manner, whatever that means.
My suggestion would be you would call it the new high school committee, like you have a finance committee, and that's just the only term that I would come up with off the top of my head for it. It's not to oversee the day-to-day operations, it's strictly for this one project. Correct, Mr. Nash?
Absolutely, and I want to make sure I'm very clear on that.
And very limited.
Don't we have to be, if we form a committee, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the finance is just an advisory type thing. We have to keep minutes. If we form an actual committee, they have to keep minutes. Is that correct? Okay.
I don't know that our finance committee or our,
I think it's more than one.
I think so.
For one, it's not really a committee.
Exactly.
But we,
And I don't think we,
I'm not sure about that.
and we don't call that a committee. Like Jeff did the Teacher of the Year, he wasn't a committee. He was
So
a
you'd
guy.
be the new high school representative.
Well,
And-
no, we can call this a committee, but we just have to be careful and make sure we follow the procedure. But you'll
may
need,
be correct.
you'll need to
You
check
don't want to
that.
create a layer of having to do another set of minutes.
Exactly.
I think by policy, we actually do refer to them as committees.
They are called committees. We have the committee chair
Right.
of the finance. We have the committee of the teacher of the year and sports staff of the year. But it is a committee, and we have had two people on the
Finance.
science committee, and we've never done minutes. So I guess we're in default there.
Yeah, but I kind of think,
But it's just like the teacher of the year. We didn't meet together.
true.
Well, and truth be told, when you and I served on finance, I don't think we ever,
We
all
didn't meet
three met.
together.
It was just a matter of, yeah.
You went in and I went in. We didn't meet together. And that
Wasn't
neither does the
purposeful
teacher of
as
the year
much
and
as
the
just-
sports
I
staff
mean,
of the
you
year.
can call it a committee, but that's not, you're not required to do minutes.
would like to withdraw my motion for the committee. So, I'm serious.
I understand.
I don't, it sounds like it's going to cause more trouble than, again, I'm just wanting us to be productive, and it sounds like this would cause more problems.
Would you like to
then it
be
would help.
informed of when things are occurring? So if you wanted to go, you could.
I use the example
Any
of
of
the
us.
press conference. Sure, I'd like to
Okay.
know about that.
Okay.
Did you have anything else, Mr. Nash?
Yes, Ms. Thompson, would you mind, I know that's awful wordy, but would you mind reading that resolution?
Resolution, whereas the Madison County Board of Education approved a resolution stating its opposition to the superintendent's submitted plan to the DOJ and NAACP LDF, referred to as the plaintiffs hereinafter, for a new high school at its February 18, 2016 meeting. And whereas since that time, the superintendent has not brought forward a plan to the plaintiffs or the Board of Education for the division of Sparkman High School and Sparkman Ninth Grade School into two high schools with grades 9 through 12 in each. And whereas the Board of Education acknowledges and expects the approval of a plan for two high schools to be in, I have a hard time with this word.
Iterative.
Thank you. Iterative process with the plaintiffs. And whereas the Board of Education would like to begin that approval process by submitting the zone lines preferred by a majority of the committee members to the plaintiffs for their consideration and feedback. And whereas the Board of Education recognizes this is not a vote of approval of said zone lines, but believes the committee's efforts should be submitted as a starting point for review. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the below signed members of the Madison County Board of Education, in an effort to productively move forward, resolve to request Superintendent Matt Massey urgently work with Madison County Board of Education and its attorney to develop and submit a plan for two high schools using the committee's recommended zone lines. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be set in perpetuity upon the minutes of the Madison County Board of Education, and that a copy be provided to the superintendent of Madison County Schools dated this the blank day of April 2016. It has spaces for everyone's signature.
Motion.
Can I, okay, do we need a motion before we discuss it?
Second.
I'd like a question.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I had a question about the wording here. When it says the superintendent submitted plan, are you comfortable with that when it wasn't me that submitted it, Ms. Thompson?
If that's the way Mr. Nash wants to read the resolution,
Yes, we obviously disagree on that. The plan that was submitted to the Department of Justice, at the time it was submitted, this board had not discussed it in public, nor had we voted
Did
on
the
this.
board give direction to the attorney to submit it?
The board gave direction to you to, number one, with the request that we talk about this in public and vote about it in public. We were told we could not do that.
But did the
So with
board
that-
give direction to the attorney to submit this plan?
The board gave direction to you as superintendent to submit your plan at your risk.
But I didn't submit a plan. The attorney submitted the plan. I can't direct the attorney to submit the plan.
Okay,
The board directed the attorney to submit the plan.
okay.
So I have objection to that. I would also like to add that the date that that plan was submitted to this resolution, that's not included in there. I would just like, just for additional facts, that was submitted July the 30th, or July 29th, or July 31st, somewhere in there.
with all due respect, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Nash is a board member, does have the right to bring forward a resolution for
All
board
right.
consideration.
I ask that you add that date in there for just a piece of fact, of it, since you're talking about a submission. Would you be willing to add that date? A superintendent's plan, if you want to leave it like that, submitted on July 31st, 2015?
July 31st, 2015 is the correct date.
Since it refers to the February 18th resolution. I think that would help clarity when we're looking back at this in the future.
Will you read again your requested change?
So,
First paragraph.
yeah, first sentence, in its opposition to the superintendent submitted plan, I first asked for that to be reworded. But
To what?
plan,
To what?
I think, take out the words superintendents, to the submitted plan.
Okay, I don't want to, we obviously disagree on that. I'd
Okay.
like to keep that worded.
What you would do is after the word plaintiffs in the paragraph, you would add dated, or on, I guess you would add on July 31st, 2015?
Yeah.
I would say
What would you put it right there?
I would put it after opposition to the superintendent submitted plan
on
on
blank.
July 31st and add it directly after.
Okay, both
plan.
of those, I don't think adds any clarity to the intent of this resolution.
Yeah,
so-
that's true, but it does that fact.
Right.
But
Yeah,
it
I mean, we
doesn't
could
add to
add,
the
Those facts
intent.
are well done.
I can have 20 pages of facts, but it doesn't add,
Well, since it's in reference to the plan that was actually submitted, and you're including the date in February, but that's fine. That's not the intent of the resolution,
Right.
and I get it.
Yeah. Was there any other suggestions?
Well, I do have a question, Mr. Nash, because there has been some questions about the Plan H, which the committee approved, and we saw a version of a map. Do we need to add into the resolution or just give direction to the attorney? But I believe that 2 to 3 members of the committee need to verify that that was the map they approved before it's submitted.
Would that be fine?
Yes. Again, this resolution and the intent of it is not about, to me, any particular map.
Well,
But-
but we're referencing the committee's work.
Yes.
And so I think that we owe it to the committee
Mhm.
to have them verify, yes, that is what we agree.
Okay.
Well, I know we have one member here tonight.
Two.
And Mr.
Okay,
Severe
sorry.
actually, I'm not calling him out.
It's a
but
small
he's-
step. Get a couple of committee members, come look at it before it's submitted and say, yes, that's what we voted.
Okay.
Simple.
And whether it's changed since
And
then.
there's no doubt, there's clarity. Yes, that is what the committee did.
Well, and I'd like to make it very clear that we are not voting on zone lines tonight.
No.
This is not in any way
We're not voting.
an
Yeah, it very
affirmation of
specifically
a
says
zone
that,
line.
very
Right.
intentionally, that this is by no means a vote on
This-
any zone lines.
Right, this
It
for
is-
the most part is just to open a conversation with the Department of Justice
That's-
regarding zone lines with a first pass.
That's right.
basically.
Right.
Again, regardless of the outcome, we just have to start the process.
One more thing before the vote. Can I ask that a committee be formed on creating resolutions so that when they're presented to the board at the time of the board meeting, it takes a little bit of time to read through the legalese of the language? Can there be a board committee on creating resolutions so we don't get them at the time of the board meeting and being asked to vote? That's one of the things that we try to
Well-
do is, as far as work session presenting and asking for votes on the same night, I kind of ask the same.
Okay, I'll speak to that. Unfortunately, we have, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, done 2 board-generated resolutions. That's not how we're supposed to do business. But in my opinion, we were unfortunately forced to do it this way. We had a hashed-out conversation where we requested for you to make a submittal. You said no. So the next step in that is for us to formally go on record that this is our request of you. And you still have the right to refuse, but it is a more formal way of doing what we did during our conversation. So I don't think a committee for resolutions is appropriate. I don't think board-generated resolutions are appropriate.
I'll withdraw my recommendation of forming another committee on resolutions.
I don't think superintendent before the board meetings is I would, we do have committee members.
We have two.
You have 2.
We have two.
As far as the last H, as far as I judge myself on this, and it was what we come up with. The only thing that wasn't, that we didn't have, because it took so long to generate the numbers. We didn't know the numbers. We didn't know the free and reduced funds. We didn't know the numbers that were wrong with that. All we had was, we could do it quickly, was come up with what the zone lines would be, and based on what we had, how it would reflect. We want to see what it would do. So that's why we had so many maps, because we put, hey, let's see what this would do. Move the line here, move that one. But map H was what we decided. The numbers was what we didn't know. Because it took a while.
Well, there was no map they created, so they chose map H, but they're like, make these changes, so we call it.
In the maps that we had, it was difficult for us to actually come up with something that would be comfortable, or even everybody would say, hey, yeah, we like that. Because of the makeup of the community. I feel like that it should have been discussion before the rezoning committee, or even a committee. And when we came together as a rezoning committee, I think at that point, we should have gone out to the committee and said, this is what we come up with. Not what you think, because it really didn't matter, just this is what we come up with. And so now what? Basically, I mean, that was my idea.
So, I think, but the key thing there, of course, in regards to this resolution, it would be map age. And I still think we would just want some committee members.
Pretty positive.
I thought it was a map I thought the
Correct.
age
It would
was.
have been choice on Mr. Massey's presentation to the board, to the presentation that was done a while back. It was choice number 4 in that presentation, and that was map I. It was the one that ran up Jeff Road to Carter Gin.
That's why we need committee members to take a look at it, unfortunately. There's still some questions.
I'm pretty sure that's pretty clear in the submission already.
Mr. Nash, if you agree, it's the committee's work we're talking about, so I think we need several committee members to take a look at it.
Well, I think, at least the way it's been presented
We do have a record of the vote.
to us, is they did, it was more or less an exit survey, and the presentation and information we've been giving is the prioritized zone lines were based on that, and whatever I mean, that's in the presentation.
We have that data in
And
the
it,
submission already.
I'm pulling it up now. I think the presentation is on the, well, we don't have to hash that out tonight.
That's
does
true.
it?
That's
I mean, it's,
we
My
take it, we
point
work
is,
out.
it's a work product of a committee. The committee should verify it before it's.
Sure.
That's my point.
Yeah.
I don't want to debate whether it's H or I or whatever. But have some committee members verify that that was the committee result. Don't read, there's no revote, there's no, yes, that's what the majority of the committee said. Now, whether we, going back to the question, do we put that in the resolution, or do we just give that as guidance to the attorney before any submittal?
to me, it's well documented enough that I don't think, I mean, it's printed and ready. It's well documented, whatever the number was, or letter was.
Technically, this doesn't make a submittal change, correct?
Do what?
Technically, this resolution does not create a submittal.
This is
It
a
only
resolution
says that we would
requesting
like
moving
us to.
forward.
Right.
It doesn't, so deciding which one to submit at this point.
Well,
This
we
only
can,
requests.
we can answer this easily. This is a resolution to the superintendent. Mr. Massey, do you understand which map we are referring to? Is it clear to you? The way that's written? Which map we are encouraging?
Let's see. This is the first time I'm seeing it, so yeah. Where are we talking about the map?
And then therefore,
The committee's recommended zone lines.
Okay. Using the committee's recommended zone lines. You know, I'm okay with that. The one thing I do want to point out is the, preference between configuration of the committee. The majority committee did prefer the 11-12 configuration. Should that be, since we're talking about a committee's
No, because it specifically refers to zone
recommended.
lines. Doesn't ask what their recommended plan of action was, it asked
So
what
it's
their
saying
recommended zone line
okay.
was, which was the purpose of the committee to
Okay.
technically.
That's good.
Form, but now you're just,
Okay.
do we have a motion and a second?
You moved
You already
and Ms.
had.
Stowe seconded, so you're ready for a vote if there's no further discussion.
any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes.
Motion to adjourn?
Nope.
Nope, motion to executive
Executive session for pending litigation.
Are we voting when we come back?
Nobody's
We had-
moved.
Well, first we have to move to go to executive session. All those in favor, well, I counted.
Okay, I'll take
Gotta give my
Okay,
pen back.
thank
All those in favor of proceeding to executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Where is it?
When we return from executive session, the only thing that will remain
Waffle
is
House.
a motion to adjourn. Y'all are very welcome to stay if you'd like to witness that at the end.